Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here with us tonight. We're at the Richard Whitted Building in Hillsborough. It's June 4th, and it's a regular business meeting. We are not going to read the the public charge to you. We think that you can all do that, and it'd be great if you can silence your phones for us before we start. Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda? Okay, I see none. I've been requested that we pull 8F, tax return request, John Gibbert. Is Mr. Gibbert here? Okay, thank you. We've been requested to move that forward, and I would like to ask the board if we can move that to 4B1/2 right after proclamations.
So moved.
Okay, you have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, everybody's in favor? Aye, okay. Thank you. So that'll be after our proclamations. With that, we're going to move right into our arts moment. And Dee Stribling will introduce Tinker Geordie. Other way around, I'm sorry. Be introduced by Tinker Geordie. Okay, I got to start reading correct now. It could be a long night.
Dee Stribling is a poet focusing on culture and landscape. Her poems are tributes to friends and places embodying the strength, struggle, and beauty of the rural and small-town settings. She is the author of several poetry chapbooks. Recent publications include poetry in this spring's edition of the North Carolina Coast Watch. In addition to poetry, she's currently working on a memoir about her childhood, a documentary about a very special softball team, and a children's book. She enjoys mixing up a PhD in geography and 30-plus years at SAS Software with a passion for helping others find their poetry and writing path. She is the current poet laureate for the town of Hillsborough. Dee?
Thank you, Tinka.
Welcome.
I could almost introduce Tinka. but
You can introduce Tinker.
Greetings to all of you. Apologize for my back. Thank you for the opportunity to share 3 poems with you. They're short. I have 4 minutes. And I also want to thank you for all that you all do, because I know it's a very difficult job. So I've lived in the country all my life and in northern Orange County the past 40 years. Most of the poems I write, as Tinka said, are about landscape and culture. These 3 are about very young, an elder person that I met while responding to a house fire with the Red Cross, and words to remember both. First one, can you hear me okay?
Sure.
Little girl morning. She awakens with the land. Small bare feet run over plank floors. Out old screen door, leaping down 2 porch steps at a time until dirt changes to soft grass, causes a big smile and gleeful laughter. Goes across the field, sending fence full of startled sparrows flying. 2. Part of old Will's house burned. The kitchen roof caved in. The volunteer fire crew got there in time to save the rest. He managed to get outside, untie his dog, Peaches. Must have started from a frying pan left on the stove. Lard burns, catches up on curtains, sends fire to ceiling. Old Will just stood there and watched, trembling. Just a little bit of trembling. Tall, thin, proud. The good people offered to put him up in a hotel in town. 2 more offered for him to come stay with them. He'd never been in a hotel, and he wasn't going to be beholden to anyone. He could cook outside. He could sleep on the old couch on the front porch. Peaches could protect him. Well water was still sweet. Water don't burn. Trees rustle in the summer breeze. And when all the people left, old Will stayed in stillness, home. The last one is called Words. A mother's touch, young ones off to school, father's hug, both parents' love. Not always, though, not always. There are many voices to be heard, struggling each day to find their words. Those we cannot hear, we cannot feel. Seeds can't grow in fallow fields. Words can divide, burn, sear, deride, wash faces with tears. No matter the years, we cannot run, we cannot hide. Words can divide, but your words can light this night. Bring us together, celebrate our light, ensure that hope is what is known, and that no one is forgotten, no one is alone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was great. Right now, I'd like to introduce Bonnie Hammersley, who's going to introduce Todd McGee. And they're going to introduce us to our second graduating class of the Citizen Government County Academy.
Thank you, Chair Rich. I am going to introduce Todd McGee, who is our Community Relations Director and who developed and has led the Orange County Academy. He developed the criteria these past 2 years, and we have gotten a lot of interest, and he's done a great job in leading that initiative. And so this evening, he is going to introduce the graduates of the second class of Orange Academy.
Thank you, Bonnie. Good evening, Commissioners. As you heard, this was our second graduating class for the County Government Academy, and Commissioner Bedford is a proud member of our first graduating class.
An alum.
She attended last year, and she still ran for County Commissioner, so that's a good thing. But during the last, they've met for 8 sessions, roughly following your meetings, meeting every other Tuesday, or first and third Tuesdays. They've done tours of various county facilities like our Solid Waste Convenience Center, Animal Services, Passmore Center. They've heard from a lot of departments about what services they provide, elections, emergency services, DEPR, aging, DSS, health. So we feel that they've gotten a really good overview of all of the things that we do in the county, and hopefully they will now have a better understanding of the decisions you make and the pressures you face as you develop your budget. We did put them through a pretty tough budget exercise a couple of weeks ago that they liked, and we tried to make them feel some of the pain that you guys feel sometimes. So without further ado, I would like to ask the members of the class to stand and come up here, if y'all don't mind, and get a photograph of everybody. And bring your diplomas if you'd like. And for the folks watching on TV and in the audience, we will do this every spring, so we'll be offered
Come
again
up here,
next year.
we'll stand in front of you, behind you, rather.
Bunch in. Abraham, you in the back.
We can all stand.
You probably do. All right, let's see.
Stand.
Get y'all to stand. Mr. Dorsey's going to get you to squeeze in there. All right. 1, 3. Everybody say cheese. 1, 2, 3. Cheese. Let me get one more. Okay. One more.
Thank you, everyone. Good job. Okay, second graduating class. Go drink some champagne or something. Okay, we're going to move on to public comments, and I have 16 people signed up to speak. So if we can do this, I'll call 2 names at a time. If the next person can just come up to the front seat and be ready to roll. You have 3 minutes to speak. Commissioner Price will time you. If you could keep to those 3 minutes, we would really appreciate it. And these are for items that are not on the printed agenda. So if you did not sign this sheet and you would like to speak, there's a sheet in the back that you can sign up for. Okay, we're going to start with Larry Shirley and then Kim Parachi. 3 minutes, sir.
Madam Chair and fellow commissioners, my name is Larry Shirley, and I reside in Carrboro, my family's home for the last 14 years. I serve as the chairman of the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, a national nonprofit working to advance clean energy across the U.S., including North Carolina. I am the former founding executive director of the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center, the former director of the North Carolina State Energy Office, and the former director of the Green Economy in North Carolina. I've spent the entirety of my 40-plus years working to ensure a sustainable energy future. The proposal you have before you to increase the property tax by 0.25% to provide additional funding for addressing climate change in our county is one of the most significant long-term climate measures that I've seen before local government bodies in North Carolina. I applaud Commissioner Markopoulos for proposing this measure, and I wholeheartedly endorse it. It has potential, although modest in taxpayer impact, of placing Orange County on the map as the leader in North Carolina and placing a dedicated revenue source behind the implementation of its plans to reduce carbon emissions and increase the contribution of renewable energy. Many communities and counties across the U.S. have set goals for carbon reductions and renewable energy contributions. However, in the South, I am not aware of any counties yet to dedicate a dedicated part of their tax base to putting real dollars behind those goals. Many appear to be set for political expedience with little intention of getting serious and actually addressing the opportunities in energy efficiency and renewable energy before them. With the enactment of this measure in your budget, Orange County has a unique opportunity to demonstrate the will, the political spine, if you will, that will be needed to put these goals into action. I've reviewed the possible measures that have been compiled as examples of how this funding could be used to produce real, tangible results in carbon reductions through energy efficiency and renewable energy. I have managed many similar programs to those outlined in the previous state positions, and I can attest to the fact that they are sound and highly doable. Many of them yield economic savings to the county budget and reductions in utility costs that will more than return taxpayer investment over time. And finally, please do not get hung up on the fact that this measure was not offered at the very beginning of the budget cycle. The fact that you have it before you is a unique opportunity and challenge to greatly advance the county's work in addressing climate change. I hope you will incorporate this into the county's budget when you deliberate over the coming 2 weeks. On behalf of your constituents, show them that you are truly serious about addressing the greatest single challenge facing our society today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shirley. Kim Parachi and then Melissa McCullough.
Kim Parachi, Eno Township, what he said. I just wanted to be a warm body to step up and say, please do this. I really like Commissioner Markopoulos's suggestion to increase this property tax by this teeny, teeny, tiny amount. Someone later will probably tell you about how much. It's $5 if you have a 200,000 home. Somebody made a graph. It's very, very little. Just here to say, vote for it. It's good.
Thank you. Melissa McCullough, followed by Bill Ward.
Hello, my name is Melissa McCullough. I am an environmental professional. My specialty is community sustainability for a fairly decent-sized environmental agency in the government. And I want to also ditto what Larry Shirley had to say. We have only a short time to address climate change, as we have been warned by recent reports who finally got around to just saying, you know, enough, enough, enough. This is desperate now. It is really desperate. The U.S. is #1 in cumulative carbon and greenhouse gas emissions over time. China is a distant second, and we have nearly twice as much. We are responsible for nearly twice as much as China, and the third nation is a good bit behind that. The best predictor of your greenhouse gas footprint is wealth. And so it seems that it's poetic justice that we are talking about attaching a small tax to what is essentially a wealth tax in property taxes. it is, as Kim was saying, very, very small. And the time is way past doing what is necessary. We are well past an ounce of prevention and getting to the pound of cure. And this modest tax, very modest tax, will enable a jump start for very important and meaningful actions that can, in addition, have co-benefits for our community, such as helping low-income people with their heating bills and that kind of thing. So the cost is small, the benefits will be very significant, and it is time for us to step up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa. Bill Ward, followed by Sally Robertson.
I'm Bill Ward. I'm a local Earth advocate. And Orange County residents and businesses use about 3,000 gigawatt hours of energy yearly to operate and maintain their homes and buildings. About 72% of this energy is generated from fossil fuels and delivered to utility customers as either electricity or natural gas. Commissioner Markopoulos, in his proposed quarter-cent increase in the property tax rate, recognized that the county needs to spend resources to eliminate fossil fuels as a source of energy in Orange County. And the county has basically three choices for how it spends this tax revenue to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. It can decarbonize electricity generation, it can increase energy efficiency of residents and businesses, and it can promote the electrification of houses and buildings that use natural gas. I believe that Orange County should minimize investment in decarbonizing electricity generation and focus on promoting energy efficiency and the elimination of natural gas. Okay, so addressing decarbonizing electricity. Currently, Duke and Piedmont emit about 0.7 pounds of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour. Duke's plan is to lower these emissions to about 0.5 pounds of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour by 2023, with no significant announced reductions beyond that. However, the political and economic pressure is increasing for Duke to revise its plans. Asking Duke to commit to 100% carbon-free by mid-century is not unreasonable. More and more utilities across the country are committing to or have achieved 100% carbon-free. Monterey Bay Community Power in California, which started generating electricity in 2018 for approximately 200,000 customers, is carbon-free. Warren Buffett's Mid-America will be producing enough electricity using wind to meet the needs of its 700,000 customers by next year. Green Mountain Power, serving 75% of Vermont, is 90% carbon-free, with plans to achieve 100% by 2030. All of these accomplishments are relying on utility-scale solutions. Utility-scale solar and wind are less expensive and more efficient than installing solar rooftop by rooftop. And ultimately, I believe the governments will induce or find some mechanism through taxing carbon or whatever to make utilities become carbon-free. With regard to energy efficiency, Commissioner Markopoulos, in his proposal to raise funds to combat climate change, mentions energy efficiency efforts in Buncombe County as a model. A few years ago, Buncombe County formed an Energy Innovation Task Force comprised of the county, the city of Asheville, Duke Energy Progress, and nonprofits. This task force successfully stopped Duke's plans for a peaker plant using energy efficiency and other measures. With the goal of carbon-free energy by mid-century, they are continuing to push energy efficiency. The other primary point was about electrification. There's lots of homes, 23,000 residents, 1,700 businesses that use gas, and that when we need to convert them. But in summary, as the frog in Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth, we are in hot water, although we are not dead yet. Time is of the essence, and we should seize any opportunity to combat the current and ever-increasing impacts of climate change.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Sally Robertson, followed by Lauren Nyland.
Hi, thank you. My name is Sally Robertson. I am Solar Projects Coordinator for NC Warren in a nonprofit in Durham, and I'm a homeowner in Carborough. I am very proud right now to live in Orange County, where we have visionary leaders who are willing to take action on climate change. Considering that the world's scientists say we only have 12 years to reduce our carbon emissions by half or else get run over by the locomotive that is climate change, you wouldn't really think that it's a visionary act to step off the railroad tracks. But apparently it is. Our federal government, our state legislature, and our main electric utility, Duke Energy, deny there's even a train coming, or they're convinced they can outrun it. Many others, though, are starting to heed the whistle. Our governor has issued an executive order instructing state agencies to make climate action plans. Many North Carolina cities, towns, and counties have passed resolutions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Some of our neighbors who can afford it have purchased solar panels or electric vehicles. The solutions are out there. Renewable energy, energy storage technology are cheaper than coal and natural gas in most places, and the costs are continuing to drop precipitously. Hybrids and electric vehicles are getting cheaper all the time. These clean energy solutions would be important for Orange County to support even if there were no climate change. Clean energy creates more jobs than fossil fuels. It saves people money on their electric bills. It doesn't give us asthma. Its waste products don't seep into our drinking water. So there are many reasons to step off the railroad tracks, and this measure allows all county residents to take that step together. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren Nyland, and then Danelle Kirk.
Hello, I'm Laura Nyland. I live in Carborough, and thank you for considering this tax increase to support climate change. I'm really glad that this is a proactive activity that you're doing, and the cost will be greater later. So any funding and effort we can put towards making these changes now will save us money in the future and take us closer to mitigating climate change. I personally have seen energy and cost savings at my house with energy efficiency and solar cells, and I really appreciate that you had these areas targeted in your plans for using the income from this tax. I've also been asked to read a letter from Kathy Kaufman, who could not be here tonight. She writes, "Dear Commissioners, I write to strongly support Commissioner Markopoulos' proposal for the quarter-cent tax increase to fund county efforts to combat climate change. I will be out of town and unable to make these comments in person. Many of these proposals identified by the county sustainability director will save Orange County money going forward, while at the same time help to reduce the county's carbon footprint in line with its commitment under the Global Covenant of Mayors. This is a smart policy and simply requires a small upfront investment. In addition, in order for the entire state of North Carolina to take climate change seriously and reduce statewide carbon emissions, we need to push Duke Energy away from its planned massive investments in natural gas infrastructure and toward the energy of the 21st century being pursued by other utilities around the country. Renewable energy has now crossed the threshold of being less expensive for ratepayers, but fossil fuel infrastructure creates greater profits for Duke Energy at the expense of ratepayers under its antiquated 20th century business plan. One important way to push Duke Energy to change its fossil fuel plans is to reduce our countywide carbon footprint. When our carbon footprint is reduced, Duke Energy will be rendered unable to argue that energy use is likely to rise and try to require new centralized fossil fuel baseload dinosaurs. The proliferation of energy efficiency measures, solar and storage in Orange County will do just that. Thank you for your time. Kathy Kaufman, Lucy Lane, Chapel Hill, US EPA, retired. Thank you.
Thank you. Danelle Kearns, and then Tom Farkas.
So much of what I wanted to say has already been said, so to save time, I'm not going to re-say those things. I support the proposal that Mark Markopoulos has brought forward, and I actually wish that the increase would be more significant. As a county, as a state, and as a country, we are doing far too little to address what is now a climate crisis. When addressing climate issues in Orange County, remember that every bold step you take inspires other counties, cities, and states to make bold steps. Our planet needs bold steps. And now I just want to share a quote with you from the now famous teen climate activist, Greta Thunberg. "We need to focus every inch of our being on climate change. Because if we fail to do so, then all our achievements and progress have been for nothing. And all that will remain of our political leaders' legacy will be the greatest failure in human history. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kern. Tom Farkas, followed by Jean Hamilton.
Hello,
Good evening.
my name is Tom Farkas. I'm a resident homeowner of in Chapel Hill, and I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak. I won't take long, mostly another warm body, but want to emphasize a few of the points that have been made about the climate change initiative, and thank Commissioner Markopoulos for proposing it. I'd like to emphasize that, at a time like now when our national leadership is in denial about climate change, it's really important that at the state and local level we act. That's really where it needs to happen right now to make a difference, and everybody's spoken already about how important it is that we act now. Also, I want to emphasize that these measures that have been proposed, and it sounds like there's some fluidity as to what the measures will be, but they of course pay for themselves, so they're really investments in our community. And I especially like the idea that some of them would be helping low-income people as well, like weatherization of low-income people's homes, helping them with energy efficiency or solarization and so on. So we kind of get a win-win as far as helping the less fortunate in our community, as well as improving or reducing the carbon footprint. And then some of these measures would help reduce our taxpayers' costs in the long run, say improving the efficiency of county buildings and so on. So really a win-win. It's not a lot of money. In fact, we should increase it like some others have suggested. So I urge you to vote yes on the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Jean Hamilton, followed by Mar Smith. Jean? Jean Hamilton, followed by Mar Smith.
Hello, my name is Jean Hamilton. I'm a new member of the Chapel Hill Carrboro City School System. However, I am speaking on my own behalf. And I am speaking about a possible amendment that would limit the use of the special district tax to fund Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools. And this is an issue that I was moved to speak about because I probably spoke to a Board of County Commissioners 10 years ago on the same topic and shared that it is important to keep the special district tax use as it is, that this is an issue, in fact, when I was on the board before, I found a memo from 2006 where this was discussed. I think it's important to realize that in our society, we do not ensure that there's adequate educational resources for all students by limiting resources for some students. I mean, as we know, there is limited funding from the federal government, from the state government, and that to serve the students in our district, we need all the funding available. So I ask that this important topic about funding of both school districts is something that should be addressed through bringing the school boards together and the county commissioners and talking in depth about how we're funded and what way we can make sure all students get adequate funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Mar Smith and then Susie Lawrence.
Thank you. My name is Mark Smith. I've been a resident of Chapel Hill, been an electrical engineer and a light electrical vehicle builder for 50 years. And I laud the proposal from Commissioner Markopoulos for a 1/4-cent tax to invest in actions to mitigate against climate change. I hold 2 of the technologies that are very promising, and when I was first in school 50 years ago, these were just a glint in our eyes. These are actually 2 components from a light electric vehicle that I rode here tonight. One of them a battery pack, another inverter that can run items sitting beside me like a monitor or other devices you might run in your home. These are out of reach for many people, largely because there are no tax incentives anymore, and largely because there are no pilot projects anymore. So I hope that some of this money can go towards such pilot projects and incentivizing our kids to look forward to having these kind of devices that they can experiment with and then grow the kind of devices and technologies we need for an enhanced future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Lawrence and then Mary Perry.
Hi, I'm Susie Lawrence, and I'm a Orange County property owner, and I also support the quarter-cent sustainability proposal. I volunteer with SALT, which is an Orange County program called Seniors and Law Enforcement Together, and I've had the privilege of visiting many of our rural, poor households, and part of this batch of money that would come from the tax increase would benefit them in being able to weatherize and decrease their energy bills on their houses, because a lot of our rural citizens are low income and they do not have the funds to do that. So that's one thing I feel very strongly about. We visit seniors, and they have even lower income than some of the working families. The other thing, I'm just newly back from Haiti, and we spent a week on a very small island that has no power grid. They cook on charcoal. Their main transportation is by foot. They have wells, and they have to carry the water on their heads. It's very much a fishing and farming sustainability society. There's not a lot of money passed around. So I sailed with a ship, and we took solar panels and solar light kits because the houses are dark, so the kids need light at night. And it was very much like Mark's technology, little solar panels. So they very much want solar there because it's something that even if a hurricane comes, will provide them with some lighting and some power. And I was also in the Virgin Islands, and they're still very much suffering from the hurricanes in 2017. Everybody wants solar. For our county, it's important for our sustainability to have some solar, especially on county buildings, because then you have, with battery backup, then you have a place where citizens can go, especially those frail seniors where they might need some heat. And as Americans, we use a large percentage of the energy in the world, and what we do here affects that island of Île Vache off of Haiti. The fishing villages are no more than 2 or 3 feet above high tide level, and their tides are very low. They're only about 6-inch tidal change. So we live in a land of luxury after spending a week at Île Vache. You know, I think it's really incumbent to us to step up and do what we can in our county and really lead the way to try to mitigate our, luxurious way of life so that we can benefit other people around the world that are not nearly as fortunate.
Thank you. All right, Mary Perry and then Joel Brown.
Hello, thank you. My name is Mary Perry. I'm a Chapel Hill resident. I've been organizing in Orange County for a long time, and climate change is the hardest thing I've ever tried to talk to people about. I think it's the hardest thing for them. There's a huge learning curve, as you probably already know, as commissioners, not only to understand what we face, but also the financial implications, regardless of who caused it and when. So I am in support of this tax increase. Because of the huge lack of national leadership, I think it's really important, time's wasting, that local communities do act, and they are acting across the country. I think it's critical that we step up and lead and use this as a teaching moment for the community. I've already noticed that with the news coverage about this potential tax increase, I've noticed people's gut reaction is to comment about, oh gosh, no more taxes, please. This is not our problem to fix, things like that. But after being urged to read it and really understand, having some conversation, they really start to get it. That if we act, that we educate consumers and, by acting as a community and those consumers drive demand and drive legislative change. So I think it's really, really even more important than the things on the list that you'd be doing, which are big, like everyone's been mentioning, but also that you're driving this conversation that will create bigger change. I will say in closing that I think that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Joel Brown and then Edward Mann.
Good evening.
Welcome, Chair Brown.
Thank you. My name is Joel Brown. I live in Carborough, and I am the chair of the Chapel Hill Carborough School District, and I am speaking on behalf of the district. So again, thank you for allowing me to comment. The board has discussed it among themselves, and we believe it is bad policy in the short run to not fund the district at least the continuation level. The schools are being asked to do more with less resources. As you know, the district is working hard to address the needs of all of our students and our community. We have state-mandated salary increases and benefits. We're trying to have paid family leave for our teachers because we have less individuals going into the teaching profession, and we want to retain our teachers so that we continue to give them high-quality instruction. This reduction is occurring in the same environment as we have for the state decline in public education funding, as you know, and less support from the federal government. Investing in education is not an expense, but an investment on those individuals that live in our county that cannot vote until they're 18. We, both school districts, are the second and third largest employers in the community, and our communities generate a significant portion of the tax base that enables growth in other areas. People live in this community because of the high quality of the schools. And I would like to add, our district has worked hard to put sustainability programs in place that we reduce our footprint, our carbon footprint, and the use of utilities, thereby saving the taxpayers money and freeing up more money for education. Investing in the schools is investing in economic development. And we have to develop our students so they will become critical thinkers. And that's what the investment is about. In closing, if you don't fund the schools at least the continuation amount, and we would ask for the full amount, please consider how the county departments can support students and their families with resources in mental health, summer programming, and what the county can do to promote further safety in our school buildings. Without the continuation budget, we will have to freeze some positions because we are going to emphasize maintaining our teachers in the classroom. As you know, schools provide services with people, and so we need the money to have the people to help the students. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Edward Mann, followed by Paul Warner.
Good evening. My name's Edward Mann III. I'm a member of the Mann-Stanford families that live out in the southwest portion of Orange County. In fact, our families have been there for many, many generations. Here on behalf of my mom, Jean Stanford Mann, and my aunt, Joyce Stanford, both of whom are in their mid-80s and have asked me here to come and speak with you. They both own property adjacent to the piece of property I'd like to speak with you about. I'm here to speak to you about the potential purchase of 13 acres from Eric Knight at the corner of Highway 54 and Mebane Oaks Road for the potential for a Mountain to Sea trail hub. Just wanted to again bring up some information about this that I presented at previous meetings, both with OWASA and with the commissioners years ago. Back in August of 2016, OWASA had public meetings and approved conditions for the land use for routing of the trail on their property. I just want to make sure you're aware of a couple of provisions in those, in that approved agreement that will prohibit the trail from going across property that adjoins the property that's being pursued for purchase. The first provision that OWASA has is that the trail shall be 50 feet from full pool reservoir. That means the trail's got to be at least 50 feet back from the water level when it's full. This is based on the Jordan Lake watershed rules that have been in place for some time. I grew up out there, been all over that property. I've been back on the back corners. There are property stakes and surveys that I have measured myself where OWASA only owns 25 feet. So there are places on that adjoining property where there's not going to be property to site the trail. The second provision is that they also have asked that the trail be 50 feet from neighboring property owners. That means it has to be 50 feet from the reservoir, 50 feet from a neighboring property owner. And if it can't be, that the county shall work with the neighboring property owner to develop terms and conditions, which terms and conditions means an agreement, right, for acceptable routing of the trail. To date, no one has contacted my mother or my aunt that own that property adjacent to the property. But based on discussions with them and the heirs to that property, they have said that there are no terms and conditions that they would agree to. So based on knowing this, I would just like to ask that you please reconsider the action and not move forward with purchasing this property, as it'd be very unfortunate for the county to spend $140,000 of current and future taxpayers' money to purchase a piece of property that knowingly cannot serve the purpose intended or approved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we have Paul Werner and then John Lessative. I don't know if I said that right, but. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have any prepared remarks, but I wanted to come here to register my dissent to the plan to raise the property tax a quarter cent for this energy savings. That's kind of vague, I think. I've lived here in this in Hillsborough for going on 30 years, and since then I've seen my property taxes go one way, up, never down. So I think that we should be looking for ways to cut taxes, not just keep increasing them. If I'm not mistaken, we have the highest tax rate in the state. Is that correct? Orange County?
I don't know.
I think it is. So I'm all about interested in efficiency, but I don't think this is an efficient use of our tax dollars. And I'm all for environmental causes. I own an electric vehicle, but yet for that I'm penalized by the state with an extra fee on my registration every year. And my local fees have tripled from $10 to $30. You know, there's people out there that can't afford tax increases year over year. You have to be cognizant of that. And you can't just spend money willy-nilly on things that are pet projects, okay? We need to really have some problem solvers that are looking at problems that we can solve rather than a global problem like global warming. I don't think putting a windmill in Hillsborough is going to solve that, you know, honestly. So I would like to register my dissent against this plan. I know I'm in the minority this evening, but I think it's something that you need to consider. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. And I have John Lessative. Okay. Welcome, John. I don't have anyone else signed up to speak after that, so if you'd like to speak, please sign up in the back with David.
Hi, I'm John Listina, and I just wanted to talk about the issues with the pollution levels and what that means to us. I was thinking, I have some neighbors who argue that maybe the pollution isn't as bad as we think. Maybe it's not we're not responsible for the global warming. It could be natural factors, whatever, or we're only contributing to it. And they don't seem to see it as being that important. And yet, several years back, under the Bush administration, when all the intelligence agencies and security agencies got together, their yearly report listed global warming as the greatest threat to our country because of the problems with sea level rise. They said that will displace so many people that they said, if you have a government you don't like, you can assassinate the person, you can try and overthrow them, you can do a number of things to try and get rid of them. But when you got hundreds of millions of people all looking for water and trying to avoid flood areas, that they could not control. So that's why they named it the #1 risk. So I think it's a little bit more than wanting clean air. The other thing is, I grew up in Colorado, moved here in '76. And in the 1970s, where I lived in Golden, Colorado, you could go up on what was called Lookout Mountain, looking down over Golden into Denver. And if you were there at 6 o'clock in the morning, you seemed like you could see it at Kansas, like 200 miles. It was so clear. But the pollution level at that time was so bad that by 9 o'clock in the morning, after the traffic picked up, you couldn't see the skyscrapers from 20 miles away. Now, Colorado put in some of the toughest regulations in the country, even more than California, and they cleaned it up a lot. I was just back there visiting last week. Just got back last night, as a matter of fact, and it wasn't so bad when the wind's blowing the right direction. From the airport on one day, I still couldn't see the mountains, but on any other day, you would have seen them looming up there like they were 5 miles away, not 30 miles away. But on some days, even with these tough standards in Colorado, there are still days when 20 miles away you cannot see the skyscrapers. That's with the toughest standards in this country. And you think about North Carolina here, one of the things I was aware of is we probably got the same levels of pollution, but when we're in the middle of a tree canopy and you don't have those vistas where you can see it all, you're not aware of how bad it really is. You know, it just blows off someplace and you don't see it. It's just a hazy sky to you. But I think it's really going on, and it's worse than we are able to perceive it here. So I think that anything we can do to start bringing this down is just going to be good, not only for us, but just for everything. I think it's more serious than we are taking it to be now. I think we've kind of forgotten how bad it used to be, and if we start backing up on those regulations, we can go back to the point where it's that brown. Thanks.
Thank you. Anna Richards?
Good evening. I want to talk about the process for assembling the budget. And whatever you feel about the climate amendment, I don't know how people see so many details of it. I've spent a week trying to get details on these amendments. And I'm here to speak about transparency. I think that whether this is a good or bad amendment, for me, it's not the issue. I don't know how many others there are floating around. I don't know what the total impact is, but my concern is that they should all be visible to the citizens so that we can look at them, debate them, review them in their totality prior to 2 weeks before the final vote. So I would encourage for the future that the commissioners consider the process so that the total impact, the detail for these amendments can be made public in a more timely manner. Details of what they are aside. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, that's all I have signed up. Everybody's okay with that? No one else wants to speak? Okay, if you want to speak about something that is on the agenda, you can sign up in the back with David and just put the number that you want. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate your being here and your attention. Okay, we're going to move on to 3 announcements, petitions, comments by board members, and let's try and keep this quick. Commissioner Dorson, do you want to start?
Sure. Just, I have a couple of things real quick. First of all, I want to, following up on that last comment, I want to petition that we put the amendments online as we get them. The manager sends out a spreadsheet every week with the amendments, and I think that sheet should go up on where we have the budget online so people can talk about them, can see what they are, how much they are, and how we're considering that. I think we probably should have a longer conversation about the process and how ensuring that it's transparent, but I do think the point about the timing of when folks get aware of those, I mean, the climate change was covered in the news, it got a lot of coverage, but there's a whole host of other amendments that folks should know that we're talking about. So I'd like to petition that we make that information public.
Can you hold up one second? I think the manager would like to speak to that.
We'll have that online
Wish the school
tomorrow.
board people weren't leaving. I wanted us.
So we'll have that online tomorrow morning, and we don't need to list it as a petition. It will be done.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner
The
Dorsey.
second thing I had was, you may be aware, there's a lot in the news recently about the toxicity of Roundup. There's been lawsuits, multiple million-dollar lawsuits. I don't know if the county uses Roundup or any pesticide or herbicide that has glyphosate in it, but if we do, I'd petition that we prohibit it. Carrboro did it back in 1999. They're the only jurisdiction on a website that lists every place in the country that's banned it. They're the only one listed in North Carolina. I'd like to petition that we look into, if we use it or some other product, that we consider banning it, and we could get the copy of Carrboro's policy as a learning, as a model. Third thing, real quick, and this is another petition. This is really to start a longer conversation process, maybe starting in the fall. But I've been thinking about this a long time, and I was reminded of it as I was reading through the information for this agenda item we have coming up. A lot of jurisdictions around the country are either taking the step to ban single-family zoning. It's been done in Minneapolis. Several states are looking at it, other cities, Portland, Oregon, the state of California. Single-family zoning was devised as a legal way to keep African Americans and other minorities from moving into certain neighborhoods, as a tool of racial segregation and residential segregation. The continued use of it continues to perpetuate segregated, racially and economically segregated neighborhoods. If we were, I think I'd like us to start a conversation about banning or getting rid of single-family zoning, have it with our colleagues in the towns as well. I think what you will see is that kind of change could have significant effect on housing diversity, on affordability, on gentrification, on the potential for aging in place, right? So if folks, instead of having a house getting an old single-family house getting torn down and replaced by a McMansion, it could be replaced by a triplex. It takes, you have the same rules about setbacks and footprints and things like that, and impervious service, but what you have is the opportunity for real affordable housing. And so I'd like to petition that we begin the process starting in the fall of really examining that possibility. And then I know you're in a rush, but the last thing I want to say, and I'm sorry that the people left, I just want to clarify my amendment about the school district, the Chapel Hill Carrboro School District tax is either being misunderstood or misrepresented, but in no way does it restrict the use of any school funding. In no way would it represent the loss of any funding. What we know is the county funds the schools at a per pupil amount, and so we set an amount, and every pupil in the county gets the same amount from us. This year it's going to be $4,340. Then, because Chapel Hill has this special district tax, which brings in $20 million, each student there is funded with an additional $2,000 per student. So we have a real funding inequity. And so what my proposal is to try to begin to reduce that inequity. And so what I've proposed is that the Chapel Hill district tax would come down 1 cent, and the county-wide tax would go up 1 cent. And that is roughly is a push, because the county money is distributed by pupil allocation, and it's about 60% Chapel Hill and about 40% for Orange County. So there would be no loss to Chapel Hill School District. There would be no loss of any school funding. In fact, there'd be an increase in school funding. But most importantly, what we begin to do is address the significant disparity in the resources that students get in our community. So one of the speakers said it was a restriction on use or it was going to take away funds. That is not the case at all, and I just wanted to clear the record. I'm sorry they left before I got to say that, but no loss of funding, no restriction of use. It's about equity, and it's about making sure that we're funding all the students in Orange County in the most equitable way possible.
Thank you, Commissioner Dorson. Commissioner Markopoulos.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Price.
Yes, I have a few. First, I did go to a meeting last week. The Durham, Chapel Hill, Carrboro MPO and the Capital Area MPO had a joint meeting. They were doing this, I think, quarterly now. And just to say that that there is a will and a big effort to try to move forward together. The regional effort, I know that's been very topic of conversation, how we can look regionally throughout the triangle, and it affects all modes of transit, including bicycles and trains and everything in between. Secondly, as we had discussed, and thank you to Craig Benedict and staff, the Forest Effluent community did meet with planning staff and North Carolina Department of Transportation about the road improvements and maintenance, so that is moving forward, at least in conversation. It is going to be a bit tricky because we found out that that area actually was platted in 1919 and has remained a historic African-American community for 100 years now. Third, we're going to be doing appointments to the Board of Health later on in our agenda, and one thing that I noticed is, so I was looking through that, and this may apply to other advisory boards as well, but I would like us to consider reserving seats for particular ethnic or racial groups. Of course, with the Department of Health, we'd have to check with the state because they have their regulations. But there are certain, even though we're all the same, there are differences whether, I mean, we've got people from all 7 continents that live in Orange County, and whether you're Asian or African or Indian, it makes a difference, and I think it would be important to have that representation on certain boards. Just as an example, someone like myself would have to think twice about going to a place like Colorado and the high mountains because of the altitude, because of sickle cell. So that's just an example. And then finally, well, I do want to echo what Commissioner Markopoulos said about the single-family housing. That is becoming a trend to Dorson, I'm sorry. Well, I'll credit you too. Commissioner Dorson, the 2 marks. He's back. He's back. About the single-family housing. It is something that is being considered around the nation. I think we should be on board with that. And then finally, I was going to send this out, but I just ran out of time, and I'm going to ask the clerk to make copies and send this out to whomever wants it. But the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Board of Directors had a meeting this past weekend, and the committee that was put together to look at the LME MCOs by Secretary Mandy Cohen with regards to the tailored plan regions under Medicaid transformation. And their decision was as follows. So the 7 current LME MCO regions to remain the same leading up to 2021 and through 2025 with 2 conditions. If the LME MCO is deemed not viable as it relates to finances or any other condition, then each county may appeal to the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services Secretary to move to another LME MCO. And 2, current LME MCOs should not be prohibited from voluntarily merging with another LME MCO between 2019 and 2025. However, a merger should not be mandated. And the recommendation will be sent by the end of this week to Secretary Cohen. And if a county wants to move to change, that is possible. Well, I shouldn't say it's possible. We can write a letter, because I know that we had sent a letter to the committee, but the letter would have to now go to Secretary Cohen. But the
I believe we sent it to Secretary Cohen also.
Right. Well, you may want to write another letter. Well, it's up to this board, but the recommendation from the committee is to let everything stay as is, because it would be such a disruption, and there would be further disruption possibly. Well, there'll be another change in 2025. So that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Price. Commissioner Bedford?
Similar to that topic, last Thursday I did 2 one-hour webinars. One was on tailored plans
and the second was on Phase 1, which our county begins November 1st. So I want to alert the public, those who are getting Medicaid services for mental health and/or substance use disorder, that letters about selecting your provider are targeted to go out June 28th. So at the end of this month, since we're on break, folks should be looking for that, and DSS will be working and reaching out with others. And nobody will slip through the cracks in that if they don't respond, they'll be assigned. But it's an important date to watch. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bradford. Oh,
And
sure.
also, I would request that our chair go ahead and resend the letter that we sent to the NCACC to the secretary with just a highlight.
Sure.
Thank
That'd
you.
be great. Commissioner Green.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Commissioner Mickey.
Yes, I will not reiterate Commissioner Dorsey's comments on the amendments. I personally thought these amendments were being publicized and were readily available for the public, and did not realize until Sunday when I started getting, and this board started getting emails, and I started getting phone calls, that folks were only aware of the quarter cent tax because of a News and Observer article, not because of any other availability. So I'll endorse that. The primary problem with not getting this information out, and I understand this is a working document, it's not a set document, but working documents basically show direction and intent of boards, and that information is critical to get to the public in order for you to continue to have an open and transparent society. So the only other point I'll make, the lack of this information means that anyone who has any other opinion on the quarter cent sales tax or quarter cent property tax do not have an opportunity to speak until the final night where we pass the final budget document. And I've never seen in 9 years major adjustments made to the budget on the final night. So they will not have an opportunity to speak if they find out about this tomorrow, whether they're pro or against. The other comment I'll make about the amendments, I'm sure there are a lot of people in Orange County that would find it interesting that our board has an amendment before us that would propose a 13% salary increase for commissioners, that when added to the increase that we put in place in 2015, 2016, would amount to a 40% cumulative increase in our salaries since 15-16, with a 30% reduction in our formal meetings.
Okay, thank you. I have just a few things, and I'm going to move fast. It is Carborough Pride Month. It's Pride all over, but Carborough has a lot of activities going on. I encourage you to go to Carborough, go to their website, and find something fun to do. I had a meeting with the mayors and the managers about the Green Tract, and we have come to some conclusions that we are going to have one more community meeting. It will be a joint community meeting as opposed to just being sponsored by Chapel Hill. We felt that the partners should be all involved in a community meeting and not just Chapel Hill leading that. We would like our staffs to be there also to answer questions. That's going to take place in the beginning of September, and then Mayor Heminger committed to putting this vote on their agenda at the end of September. So we hopefully progress, Commissioner Dorson. I'm hoping. I know you spent 2 years trying to get this moving forward, so we'll see if September it can happen.
What are they actually going to vote on in September? Do we know?
What Carborough and the Orange County Commissioners voted on. So it's reconfiguring it, and then we can start talking about density. Okay, so that's that. I did also talk at that meeting event, and I'm going to petition this board. I know we're already doing it, but if there's something on our agenda that is affecting one of the towns, our clerk needs to send that agenda item to their clerks so they know that it's happening. This pertains to the Rogers Road zoning. We never got any kind of information from Chapel Hill that, number one, that there was a public hearing, and number two, that they were voting on it that night. And when I asked could we get a review, they went ahead with the vote anyway, so we didn't get to review that and comment on that. But it goes both ways. So if they're doing it with us, we need to make sure that we're doing it for them. And I can see on our agenda tonight, there are 2 places where we did contact the towns that were involved. One was Chapel Hill, one was Hillsborough. I think that is going to be it. I can follow up on some other things. Yes, Commissioner Price.
One thing that I forgot, in response to some of the things that were said with regards to that energy efficiency tax, Manager, can we find out about the weatherization program? I know that there was one with what formerly was JACA, I guess now Central Piedmont or whatever, and I thought that they were supposed to be working in Orange County on weatherization.
I can get that information to the board.
Okay, great. Let's move on to proclamations, resolutions, and special presentations. The first one we have tonight is...
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
might, at this
Yeah.
point, I would request that the board would excuse me for participating and voting on item 4C, Voluntary Enhanced Agricultural District Designation, multiple farms. One of those farms belongs to my family, and I don't feel like I should vote on that.
Okay, need a motion to excuse Commissioner McKee?
So moved.
We're going to just recuse him for that, voting
For
on that
4C,
one?
yes.
And then the other farms that are in, he will vote for?
I'm going to sit out the entire process on that item.
Well, why wouldn't you be on the ones that are?
It's the board's decision.
Because we're going to pass more.
If I could add something, I believe it should just be the one.
The McKee farm. Okay.
Then I'm good with that.
So, okay, Commissioner Price said the friendly amendment is going to be just the McKee farm? Endorsed, and that was the second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so the 4A proclamation recognizing Albert Lindy Pendergrass. The board will consider voting to approve a proclamation recognizing the life and services of Albert Lindy Pendergrass for the people of Orange County, to authorize the chair to sign. If the Pendergrass family can come up while I read this proclamation, that would be wonderful. Whereas Albert Lindy Pendergrass was a law enforcement leader in Orange County and throughout his life worked tirelessly to protect and serve the people of Orange County, and whereas Lindy Pendergrass was born and grew up in Orange County as the son of a police officer, and whereas Mr. Pendergrass served in the United States Marine Corps for 4 years, and whereas Lindy Pendergrass joined the Chapel Hill Police Department in 1956 and served for 26 years, working his way up the chain of command to the rank of major, and whereas Lindy Pendergrass was elected sheriff of Orange County in 1982 and served in that capacity for 32 years until his retirement in 2014, and whereas at the time of his retirement, Sheriff Pendergrass was 81 years old, making him the oldest and longest-serving sheriff in the state of North Carolina, and whereas Lindy Pendergrass was recognized by the governor of North Carolina with the induction into the Order of the Longleaf Pine in 2013, whereas Lindy Pendergrass served the people of Orange County in a law enforcement capacity for 58 years, and whereas our entire community mourns the passing of Lindy Pendergrass on May 19th, 2019, and expresses our sincere sympathy to his wife, Sue Copeland Pendergrass, and family and friends. Now, therefore, we, the Orange County Board of Commissioners, on behalf of the residents of Orange County, express our deep appreciation, gratitude, and respect for Lindy Pendergrass, for over his lifetime provided over half a century in law enforcement, protecting the residents and visitors of Orange County. This, the 4th day of June, 2014. I need a motion to pass this.
So moved.
And second, Commissioner Price. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. thank you. Now I'm going to have Janice Tyler come forward, and she's going to read a proclamation for Lee Pavao. So if the Pavao family can come on up. I got to move again. I should have brought this down.
Good evening, Commissioners. I had the pleasure of working with Lee Pavao for the past 30 years, so we have friends and family here, and we also have some staff from our department here. Whereas, through his tireless work in various sectors of the community, Lee Pavao served Orange County on multiple community and leadership programs. And whereas, a graduate of the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, Lee joined J. Walter Thompson Company in New York and was assigned to the Miami office before being called to serve with the U.S. Army at Fort Bennington from 1956 to 1958. And whereas Lee and his wife Joan retired to Chapel Hill, North Carolina in 1988, and while Joan passed away in 1990, Lee used his years of award-winning advertising and business skills to dedicate countless hours to the Orange County Department on Aging, including the Orange County Task Force for Senior Needs in Southern Orange, the Chapel Hill Senior Center, and the Robert and Pearl Seymour Center. And whereas Mr. Pavao also served the community through his work with the Chapel Hill Parks and Recreation Commission, the Public Library Board and Foundation, the Ronald McDonald House, the Orange County United Way, and the Orange County Visitors Bureau. And whereas Lee was elected to the Chapel Hill Town Council for 2 terms, serving as Chapel Hill Mayor Pro Tem from 2000 to 2001, and whereas Lee was an active board member of the Orange County Visitors Board for many years, growing Orange County jobs and the economy through tourism. And whereas Lee had great passion for his work with older adults to bring a modern one-stop shop senior center to Chapel Hill, which culminated in 2007 with the opening of the Robert and Pearl Seymour Center. And whereas in 2012, Mr. Pavao received the Order of the Longleaf Pine Award for his 30 years of volunteer service in Orange County. And whereas Lee Pavao, a longtime Orange County volunteer and civic leader, died at his home on May 13th, 2019, surrounded by his family. And whereas Lee's sense of humor, generosity, and compassion for others will be greatly missed. Now, therefore, we, the Orange County Board of Commissioners, on behalf of the residents of Orange County, express our deep appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the services rendered by Lee Pavao to the county and beyond over the course of his lifetime. This is the 4th day of June 2019, signed by Penny Rich, Chair of the Orange County Commissioners.
Motion to pass the proclamation?
So moved.
Second.
Price and Bedford, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Beautifully written, and so I don't need to go over my father's, but I really wanted to thank the commissioners for, obviously my father being the force of nature that he was, but he had such kindness and such a soft voice that he got it across with, and there was just absolutely no malice in the man. And so I really want to thank this commission and these commissioners and the commissioners that have come before to give him the conduit to do the work and help the community that he truly loved so much. And I've heard all the stories about everyone here and everyone that have come before, all good, because I don't think I will ever find another person that had no judgment of people. He did not judge. He took everyone as they were and worked with them. So on behalf of my family, my brother Mark and Leah, and we have such gratitude that, you let him have this second life after our mother died and let him do the work that he loved to do. So thank you for that on behalf of our family.
Thank you.
Yes, pictures.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for hanging out with us also. Okay, we're going to move 8F up now before we move on to the voluntary enhanced agricultural. So, Mr. John, I'm sorry, come on up.
I'm John Guiberas.
And you have 3 minutes, sir.
Pardon?
You have 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm John Guiberas, my wife Judith. We're here to discuss a request we made of the commission for a property tax refund for years 2014 to 2018. At 1 o'clock this afternoon, we received a call from staff that advised us that they were going to recommend denial of that request. It came as a little bit of a shock since as late as April 30th, we were told that they were recommending that we were to be, the request was going to be accepted. So we felt a need to be here to be available to you to answer any questions or to make a few key points to help you make this decision properly. I wish it was a more inspirational topic, but at principle here is the issue of whether or not it's fair or even legal to tax people for property they don't own. And fundamentally, we went through a great deal of detail in our request, providing all the background information. In 2 minutes, I don't think I have time to go over all that, but I will mention quickly that the property that we don't own belongs to Lake Orange, Inc. If this was my property line and you were the lake, the area between my property line, which starts at elevation 620, going to elevation 615, is owned by Lake Orange, Inc. They have been charged tax on that from the very beginning, back in the 1970s. To my knowledge, we've been charged tax on that land similarly since at least the time we've owned the property, which is October 2002. That is double taxation. There's 2 taxes being drawn for the same piece of land, to one legitimate owner with clear precedential ownership laid out, and one who just happens to be the victim of a erroneous clerical error filed on a deed, on a plat, by the person who put together the subdivision in 1976. Fundamentally, due to these series of multiple party errors, we discovered in late July 2018 that we were having this double taxation. We talked to county staff who were quite helpful in terms of how to resolve it. They were very familiar with this. County staff has been aware of this situation, I think, from the very beginning, but for a long time, certainly well preceding 2014. They basically told us that we needed to conduct a new survey, file the new survey, and show definitively what the 620 line was and what the 615 line, and how much of that property was not ours and should be removed from our taxation. We did that. We filed it. They accepted it. And then we said, okay, we clearly have been overtaxed on this amount of land. The statute of limitations is 5 years. We request a refund for that land, for that tax over that 5-year period. And that's what we filed for.
Okay, sir, let's hear from our tax administrator, Mr. Brinson. Do you want to, you or John want to add anything to this conversation?
Not yet. Can certainly in a few minutes.
Okay. Dwayne, do you want to just give us a little bit of background, and then we'll decide if we're going to refer this back or where we're going to go with it?
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
The deed conveying the Guiberas property conveys the area between 615 and 620. The issue all along has been that it can't be determined whether 615 and 620 line is. Lake Orange is taxed on going off memory, 43 to 50 acres of land between the 615, 620 lines. But we have never known where those lines are, never been able to determine where those lines are. And to correct the issue, we've been asking that property owners who believe they have discrepancy in the land ownership as we have recorded, they get a new survey to prove that this land is not owned by them, it's owned by another party. And that is what the Guibers have done. And we can correct that once the public record is corrected. We have been using what's on public record as of now, which is the plat from the original subdivision back in the 1970s. Once a new, more accurate survey is recorded on public record, we can update our documents moving forward at that point. And that's what we have done here. We've updated it. The Guibers property, it was actually recorded in February of 2019. And property tax, everything is as of January 1st, 2019. So we have corrected it. We just can't support going back 5 years retroactively.
And John?
And that's right, and you know, I certainly understand the issue, but looking at the land records don't provide or don't demonstrate clear ownership and even create a lappage issue. And as I mentioned to the board previously, a lappage issue is overlapping and conflicting ownership claims. I think this could be clarified through a quiet title action, possibly through some extensive title work between the landowners around Lake Orange and the corporation. But as far as going back in time for an illegal tax issue, we've had difficulty getting to the point where we could justify that pursuant to statute.
Okay, any questions for John?
Would I be allowed to speak? I'm Judith Guibert, I'm also on the property.
Pull that microphone a little bit closer. Thank you, ma'am.
And I think it's important for you to keep in mind that Lake Orange, Inc. has been taxed on that property. They've been paying property taxes on that property,
Okay,
along with us. Double taxation.
thank you. Commissioner Markopoulos?
So there have been other instances around Lake Orange where this problem has surfaced?
There have been a number of property owners who have recorded a new survey at their own expense, and we have updated those moving forward. We've not gone back retroactively for those property owners.
So there was no settlement made, it was just finally agreeing that this was the line that was to be used?
Yes, sir.
Going forward?
Yes, sir.
And if I could add one thing, the Guibers did that as well. They provided a survey, and the difficulty we have with the survey in my office, and two lawyers looked at it, and what it shows is at this line, it shows a new property line for them, but it also only shows an easement in this other location rather than a different landowner. It shows an access easement. And that's another issue that we've had in getting to the going back and looking at a refund.
I must respond to that.
Okay, we're going to have one more response, and then we're going to have
This is
Commissioner.
fine.
Okay.
But what was filed in February is state-of-the-art, detailed survey, and was accepted by you all, and you've changed the maps and everything else associated with it. What is at issue is how far back do you go where the staff has had other opportunities where refiled plats were submitted by someone other than us back in 1985, and whether those were adequate or not. Staff, I don't know the reasons, but they rejected an opportunity to solve this problem back in 1984 when they didn't accept, and I think with good reason, since it was Michael involved, I would assume it's good reason. But the bottom line is, what we submitted is as accurate as you can be. And what we've asked for is, we've defined, this is the part of this stuff here, this piece here, that we don't own, but we're being taxed on. Here's what it is, and this is what the tax consequence is for that, going back to 2014, the statute of limitations. So I don't think you're denying that what we submitted in February is correct. Are you, John?
I'm not denying that it shows a new line. The difficulty I've had with it is it shows an easement rather than different ownership of that separate strip.
Michael Burton
It
here?
specifically says easement on it.
Okay, thank you, sir. I certainly can sympathize with you. I've had a problem with my taxes as well. Commissioner Dorson.
So I have a couple of questions. So just for Dwayne, first of all, so are you saying, I want to be clear, I understand what you're saying, that going forward, so like next year, that these folks won't get taxed on this, whatever it is, 3/10 of an acre?
That's correct.
All right, and I wanted to ask the property owner a question. Do you ever use this property? You walk on it, you mow it, you take care of it?
Yes, we
So you've
basically...
enjoyed the benefit of using it?
Egress and ingress, we pay a recreational fee to get to the lake, to Lake Orange, Inc. They retained ownership of the strip between our property and the lake itself. It's as if you imagine your backyard has an imaginary line drawn through it, and the part between that part and the water, you don't own.
I got you.
Now, we knew that we didn't own it. We didn't know that we were being taxed on it, as well as they're being taxed on it.
Commissioner Dorson.
Yeah, well, I mean, and so this is back to Dwayne again. Is there, I mean, as far as we can tell from the records, have both parties paid tax on this?
That's what we haven't been able to determine, is that we've never known, since I've been here, we've never known where the 615 and 620 line is, all the way around the lake. Lake Orange, Inc. has been taxed on a set number of acreage per the deed. And they own between 615 and 620. But there's nothing on record showing anything contradicting the 1973 survey of the original subdivision. So we have no way of determining if it's been double taxed.
Additional questions? Commissioner Price?
Yeah, can you explain the statute of limitations that Mr. Gabera was talking about?
Sure, it's any refund request. You can, if it is a clerical error or an illegal tax, you can go back up to 5 years and refund the tax. And that's true for any justified property tax situation.
And so since this was not a clerical error, it was just an error in the books, well, not having all the information, then you're saying that the statute does not apply in this case?
We have been taxing the property based on what was on public record.
Okay.
Right. And now that's been corrected, thankfully. And we can correct our records going forward.
And how do you tax the land? Because I had a similar dispute, and I had to go through the survey and everything else. But you said that there wouldn't be there was no difference in that tax because the land had just a certain set fee?
Their tax value has been reduced, if that's what you're asking. There is a new value based on the survey that's been recorded. It's about 0.3 acres less their ownership. So we have adjusted their value accordingly. So it did affect the value.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioners, we can vote on this tonight, or we can pull it and get some more information and vote on it on the 18th. What would the Commissioners like to do?
I'd favor pulling it.
I'm sorry?
I would favor pulling it.
We're pulling it? There's a motion to pull it? Anyone
I'll
second?
second that.
Second, Commissioner Markopoulos.
Well, I'd like to understand what other information we expect to get between now and the 18th, and that will, I mean, it sounds like two things. One is there's a broader problem than this resident has with the land around Lake Orange, right?
Correct.
So we ought to at least develop some kind of plan for addressing this holistically. Whether that means the county has to do a survey, or we get Lake Orange to do a survey or something, and, we ought to the extent we can, I don't want to use the legal term, quiet the title, but to, resolve this once and for all. So if we're going to do that, then I think the motion ought to have some instructions in it
I
as to
think that's
what
right.
we want.
I think that's right.
I don't know why we would wait if we're not going to have any more information.
Well, that's my concern also, is if we reverse what the manager's recommendation is, how many other people on Lake Orange are going to come up and ask for the same thing? And if it appears that there's a problem all the way around. So if it's okay with you, Commissioner Green, would you like to give some direction on that?
Sure, no, it didn't seem to me like there is a problem all the way around, and that's why I wanted to understand more.
Okay.
But it's okay, it's fine, I'm fine with it.
Well, I would be in favor of awarding the refund. I think there is some, it's just as an equitable matter. It seems like we've already agreed that they don't own this land, and I realize that there's going to maybe other owners that are doing this, but if you know, if there's been double taxation, then we've got a windfall, an unjust enrichment, as they say in the law. So I will vote against the motion, but I appreciate the idea of resolving it all at once.
I will withdraw the motion, but I would welcome other property owners in the same situation to come and ask the same thing, because that would be equitable as well.
I have
Well, before you withdraw the motion, I think we still need to try to come up with a holistic plan,
do.
so.
We do. We need to come to, and my concern also is that I don't think it was clear that the land was doubly taxed. So that might be clear to you, but it's not clear to me. So,
Well, right,
Commissioner
it's not
McKee?
clear to me. I mean, I think it needs, the quiet title needs to happen. Absolutely, I think that. So, I mean, I guess I made the motion because I think there's a lot that's not clear.
Commissioner McKee?
But I think that Commissioner Green's motion is valid because we need to know for this landowner as well as all of the other landowners around that. That's a significant number of people, and we need to resolve it all instead of doing it piecemeal. So I think it's a valid motion. I would hope that it remains.
Can I make the motion to postpone it?
With gathering information.
We've got to
and
gather
learning
more
about
information and
Lake
learn more about what all's at stake and at play.
Orange. Okay. Commissioner Markopoulos, did you have a question about that? Because
No,
you're
that's
seconded.
good.
So you're going to take the second, you're going to
Yes,
friendly
I
amendment?
think we
Okay.
need to learn the whole story.
Okay. John?
Well, I was just going to say, certainly if there is a double taxation issue and that needs to be discovered, then the Guy-Bears would be entitled to go 5 years back. But I was just going to suggest to you that just awarding this without knowing that clearly puts the board at risk of personal liability to any taxpayer in the county who decided to challenge this. I don't think that's a high risk, but if the motion is to pull this off and get more information and try to resolve this issue with a little more time, with the understanding that the Guy-Bears would get that refund they're entitled to if we can establish a double taxation, then that would be the way I would recommend to go, rather than awarding the refund without clearly knowing that double taxation issue.
Commissioner Green, are you okay with that motion?
Yes. Mhm. I mean,
And
that doesn't change the motion, does it?
Well, no, I just want to make sure that you're adding
Yeah.
everything that our
Yeah.
lawyer is telling us, and
Yeah,
Commissioner
that's what I
Markopoulos.
thought the intention was all along.
Okay, Commissioner Dorson, is that a little bit,
No, I'm going to
that's
support the
doable then?
motion, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner McKee, you have a concerned face on?
I just want to make sure that I understood the motion correctly, and it was not to award this and then
Right.
look at the other, we're going to do it holistically and then come back to it in August. I'm
Okay.
okay with it. Just-
Okay, so we got a motion by Green and a second by Markopoulos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Okay, thank you. We'll be in touch. Okay, let's move now to 4C. And Commissioner McKee, you can hang around for a while. And we have Gail Hughes, who will also recuse herself when talking about the McKee Farm.
That's correct. Good evening. Thank you. I bring a group of farms to you again.
I was before you in December, and as normal, I come before you twice a year with fall and spring enrollment requests from farmers to be enrolled in the Voluntary Farmland Preservation Program. And we have 6 farms tonight. And as Commissioner Rich noted, that one of those I do have a family interest in. So Mr. Stansel will present that particular farm. And so we'll go through these pretty quickly. A lot of our farmers, a very busy time for them. A lot of them are getting up hay, working in tobacco, doing things. So they could not come tonight. They regret they could not. But I do have a few in the audience that I will recognize when I get to their farm. So just very quickly, just want to give the benefits, and I will not read through all of these, but we have 2 different designations. One is the Voluntary Agricultural District, what we call VAD. It is a 10-year commitment for the farm to continue to be an active farm, but at any time if something happens and the landowner needs to change or withdraw from that VAD, they can with a notice to the Ag Preservation Board with a 30-day notification. The Enhanced Voluntary Agriculture District, the EVAD, is an irrevocable 10-year commitment for active farm production, therefore the enhanced, but it also qualifies the farm for potentially up to 90% of cost share rates and some other state and federal grant funding priorities. So we'll move on. First farm I want to present tonight is in the Cedar Grove Agriculture District. It's 3 parcels of land, the family of Lynn and Teresa Holloway and Mr. Holloway's mother, Aileen Holloway. And they're requesting the status of Voluntary Agriculture District on 122.05 acres. And they grow tobacco, small grain crops, and they have managed woodland. The second farm, many of you probably are very familiar, Howard and Karen McAdams with McAdams Farm just outside of Eflin here. They are requesting enrollment for the voluntary ag for 22.68 acres in the High Rock Eflin Conservation Agriculture District. It's 1 parcel of land. It's hay crops and managed woodland. This is additional acres to their existing farmland that already is in the VAD program. They purchased an additional acreage. This farm is also in the county's and statewide Century Farm program, which indicates farms that have been in the same family ownership for over 100 years. The next farm I'd like to present is Claude Hughes and Linda Sakowicz, the Bracken Bray Farm that is in the Eflin area also, but they're actually officially in the Cane Creek Buckhorn Agricultural District. It's a very small parcel, but it adjoins their existing agriculture district the agriculture land that's already in farmland. This is an additional 2.56 acres for VAD status, and it has livestock and pasture land. The next farm that we would like to have enrolled in the program is Susan Snipes Nichols and Karen Snipes Sexton. They're requesting Voluntary Agricultural District. It's 268.33 acres in the Cane Creek Buckhorn Agricultural District, 2 parcels of land. This land is farmed by a local farmer, Kirk Farms, which he also is in the Voluntary Ag District and a neighbor. He farms corn, soybeans, small grains, hay crops, and it has also managed woodland. Most people are very familiar with this farm. It's on Dairyland Road. It was a working dairy farm until a few years ago. It was called Anna Lorek Farm. It is also currently in the Century Farm Agriculture Program. I do want to point out, too, that the Snipes family is here tonight, both sisters Karen and Susan and their family. The next farm that we have for consideration in the Voluntary Agriculture District is for Mark Miller. He is in the Caldwell Agriculture District with 177.74 acres on 5 parcels of land. He has beef cattle, pasture, hay crops, and managed woodland. And this farm, I will let Mr. Stansel report on.
Well, folks, do you want to vote on the first 5, and so we can get that going with, and then Commissioner Ray Key can just sit and not leave his seat? So this program is wonderful. It's just so exciting for our new commissioners. This is the first time you get to vote on something like this. I don't know if you have any comments, or you're as excited as we are every time we get these forms.
And thanks for the beautiful visuals. This really gives an idea of what the resources of our county.
Okay, so the manager is recommending that the board, we're going to do all 6, but we'll do 5 right now, and I don't know the different acreage, but so let's just consider these 5, and then we can consider the other one on its own. So, and then we'll get a total acreage when we do the McKee Farm. Okay, so let's get a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Dorson and Price, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Against? Okay. That's great. That's 1 through 4, and then 6, and now Dave Stansel's going to tell us about the McKee Farm.
Yes, and I was at the Agricultural Preservation Board meeting when this was considered. This is the Virginia McKee and Ayers property, 162.28 acres. It's located in the Caldwell Agricultural District, 1 parcel. And as you can see, beef cattle, pasture, hay crops, corn, soybeans, small grains, and managed woodland all occur on this property. It has been applied for into the Century Farm Program, which, as we've talked before, is a program that recognizes farms that have 100 or more years in the same family.
Great, thank you. Again, folks, the manager is recommending that we approve this, and if we do, that would mean that we added 756 acres this evening. So I need motion to approve the McKee Farm.
So moved.
By Green. Second. And Price. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Against? Okay. Thank you so much. So do you want to just give us a total now? Did I do that right? Was it 756?
That is correct, you
Okay.
did. And just as a wrap-up, you can see on the map there, the red indicates the new farm parcels that are, that you have just voted on. And so just to update you on numbers, we did not have any enhanced voluntary acre increase this time, but we did have, of course, all of those were voluntary ag district. So that brings us to a total of 12,493 acres in the voluntary, 2,566 in the enhanced, for a total of 15,059 acres for total.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you to our farmers and all the work you do
Absolutely.
to go out there and talk with them and, get them to get into the program. We really appreciate it.
They really like the program, and it's an easy sale, I guess you'd say. And I do want to comment, I think, unless they've gone, some of the folks back here in the back in Land Records are a big help to me with this program. I saw them back there. I do want to note that I wouldn't be able to get the beautiful maps that I have without Margaret Jones's help, and also the folks in Land Records.
Y'all stand so we can see
Yes.
you. Come on, don't be shy. All right, thank you.
This is a task that one department can't do alone, and because it is mandated, that our ordinance does mandate that we do a half-mile circumference around each farm, and so the staff with Land Records helps do that, and then, of course, we get it recorded at Land Records, so. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
And I really appreciate the Snipes firm coming out tonight.
Yeah,
the farms.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Snipes family. We appreciate it. Okay, great. Now we're going to move to D, E, and F, and we're going to take these all together. And Dave Stansel, I believe you're going to help us out with that. And so what we're doing is, these are the conservation easements, Cedar Grove, Windy Hill Farms, Springcrest Farms, and also the Holden Roberts Farms.
Yes, thank you, and good evening. We'll talk about a little different part of farmland preservation now. If we can get the PowerPoint to load. Here we go. Got it. Okay. Just as a quick aside, it is amazing. I've been fortunate to be here long enough to see and remember the days when we had less than 2,000 acres in the voluntary ag district program, and we didn't have any conservation easements in Orange County for agriculture. And 19 years later now, we are approaching close to 3,000 acres of permanently protected agricultural prime farmland natural areas, and it's been quite an accomplishment, and I'm glad I've been able to present the first conservation easement and some of the ones that we have tonight. So as you can see on the screen tonight, we do have 3. So this covers items 4D, 4E, and 4F. The Cedar Grove Windy Hill Farm, which is owned by Jane Gladhill, and Ms. Gladhill is present tonight. The Springcrest Farm, owned by Kim and Chad Woods. The Woods were not able to be present tonight. And the Holden Roberts Farm with Nels and Nancy Anderson. I don't think they are here tonight either. So what we'll do is just kind of walk through the conservation easements together, and then the board can consider action. The Cedar Grove Windy Hill Farm Conservation Easement with the Gladhills, you may recall this is part 2 of 2 with the Gladhill family. Previously, last year, we did a conservation easement with the Gladhills on the other side of the road, essentially, a part of the property that was much more wooded and had a great deal of natural resource significance. This is a 39-acre site on Carstar Road in Cedar Grove Township. This easement and all of our easements tonight are joint easements with the Eno River Association, which of course is one of our primary partners. And with us tonight is the new Director of Conservation and Stewardship, Kim Livingston, who looks familiar for some reason. And we're delighted to see her again tonight, too. This particular farm, obviously farmland and watershed protection, as you'll see in a couple of the maps here, we have a number of different things that are being protected and conserved on this property. But there are tributaries that flow to Lake Orange and the East Fork of the Eno River, which of course downstream are water supplies for Hillsborough and then Durham and then Raleigh. This is a context map, if you will, and you can see that there are a lot of other voluntary agricultural district farms as well as conservation easements and permanent open space in this area of the Upper Eno watershed, and the Cedar Grove Windy Hill Farm is located here in the middle in the red. This is a picture that was taken showing the 2 sides of the Gladhill property, and the property that's on the left here is the property that we're talking about tonight. This is an aerial photo that shows the property in a little more detail. You can see the stream configuration and some of the existing farm and agricultural and residential portions of the property. So there are both cultivated lands and woodlands as part of this property. Funding, and we'll go through this for each of them, but one of the things that I think we take great pride in is that we have been able to work with a number of different partners and been able to stretch and leverage our dollars for farmland conservation easements and agricultural preservation. And as you can see, I won't read the list here, but you can see the Eno River Association is contributing. We were successful in all of these grants that you'll see tonight, all of these farms tonight, in getting North Carolina Agricultural Development and Farmland Preservation Trust Fund monies, and that is a partial funding source. And in each of these cases, the family is making a donation of the value of the property, and that's something that they can use to qualify for tax credits. The next farm is the Springcrest Farm Conservation Easement with the Woods family. This is 70 acres located in Cedar Grove Township. This is a century farm, and it has 2,000 feet of frontage along the South Fork of the Little River, and that, of course, is one of the major water sources and streams in the Little River watershed. So that flows directly into Durham and is one of Durham's water supplies. So we, I think, have done very well by Durham over the years in terms of helping to protect the Little River and Flat River watersheds. This particular easement also involves work with the Soil and Water Conservation Office in another program, which is the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, CREP, that helps provide funding for buffers along stream corridors as well. So again, trying to leverage all of these different programs together. And here's a vicinity map showing you the location of the Springcrest Farm. It's actually, I think it's barely in Cedar Grove Township, but very close to the line with Little River. The property that you see just to the left, by the way of context, is the Breeze Farm. In green, the agricultural farm that is used as a pilot program for young farmers and new farmers, and then the orange shaded area is the conservation easement that we hold with the Breeze family. And this is a picture of Springcrest Farm, again, located in the northeastern corner of the county. The aerial photo, you can see in the yellow along the boundary that's kind of to the right-hand side, that is the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program easement. There is a farmstead area where a lot of the farm activities occur, and that's also an area where future activities, if they're needed, would occur. And you can see the cultivated lands and some wooded areas as well in that long stretch of the South Fork. And again, in this case, you can see a lot of the same funding partners. Again, the State Ag Development Farmland Preservation Trust Fund and the landowner donation from the Woods family.
I'm sorry, David, can you explain again what that conservation, the CREP easement is?
Yeah, it's a Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. That's a program that is offered through the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service and the state as well. And it's a program that's available to farmers and rural landowners to help. And I know in many cases it funds exclusion fencing for livestock to keep them out of streams. And Gail's office and her office actually do quite a bit of that work individually with farmers across the county through the Soil and Water Conservation District office. But it is a separate program that is able to work in conjunction with our own easement program here. And finally, the third conservation easement that we have before you tonight is the Holden Roberts Farm. This is 57 acres in Eno Township on St. Mary's Road. If you've been on St. Mary's Road, you've probably driven by it many, many times. It is a National Register of Historic Places site, a historic farm. It's a century farm, and it has about 2,500 feet of Eno River tributaries that, again, flow into Durham and eventually into Falls Lake. So watershed protection and agricultural preservation go hand in hand many times, and that's often a key factor for us as we consider the possibilities. Context map for the Holden Roberts Farm shown in red here on St. Mary's. The area in yellow is the Eno River State Park, and you can see how close it is to the Eno River itself. And this is a shot of the Holden Roberts Farm, hay and grassland, and I think also some cattle breeding on this property. The aerial photo, which you have in your packet, which shows the farm's location and again the farmstead area identified. And in this case, I would note one thing on the funding partners list here. We're very fortunate again to have again our state grant and our Lands Legacy program, which does so much of this, and the landowner donation, which is an important part. But the City of Raleigh's Upper Neuse Clean Water Initiative, or UNCWI, was able to help fund part of this. And the City of Raleigh years ago was able to set aside funds to help protect and conserve lands upstream of Falls Lake. And of course, much of northern Orange County falls into that area. So we actually have almost $71,000 coming from the City of Raleigh's initiative going towards this particular conservation easement. And so this, again, is part of our Lands Legacy program. These are 3 projects that have been in the works for a while. We do have others that will be coming forward to you. So I'll be glad to answer any questions, and Kim Livingston also is here if you have any.
Thank you, David. Questions? Commissioner Markopoulos?
Comment. When you mentioned that Raleigh was helping fund this, I was hearing Barry Jacobs' voice in my head.
Yeah.
And are we sending them a thank you letter for that?
You know, I think we have in the past when it closes, once it's done. So, but we'll make a note to do that.
Ask on behalf of Barry and his good sentiments on
interestingly
that.
enough, Commissioner Jacobs for years was trying to push the City of Durham to do likewise, and they finally have created a similar program to help fund upstream conservation.
Yeah. Great.
Commissioner Green?
Well, as your delegate on the Upper Neuse Committee, I will make sure to mention that with gratitude. But as y'all probably all know better than I, there's an ongoing discussion about being able to claim that preservation of land does help with the health of the lake, because it's better to not put pollutants in the lake first of all than to have to go back and take them out. So this is really a win-win there.
Okay, so the manager recommends the board adopt and authorize the chair to sign the resolution approving the acceptance by Orange County of the conservation easement, and authorize the chair and the clerk to sign the conservation easement agreement, subject to final review by staff and the county attorney, with a closing and record date of document expected to occur on or about September 30th, 2019, and approve budget amendment 10A. So I need a motion for that, and then we'll have Commissioner Bedford read one of our resolutions.
Chair, excuse me, if I could, note, the budget amendments are also, they change on the three easements, so there's also a 10B and a 10C.
I'm sorry, yes,
I don't know if you're
should've-
doing them all at one time or not.
I was running, yeah, okay, so can we could do that all at once, John, correct? We
Yes.
could do all those easements. Okay, so it's budget amendment 10A, budget amendment 10B, and 10C.
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Bedford, any second?
Second.
Commissioner Markopoulos, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, and Commissioner Bedford,
Okay.
take it away.
Orange County Board of Commissioners Resolution. Approval of conservation easement between Orange County and the Eno River Association and Jane Gledhill. Whereas Orange County has adopted goals that promote the preservation of natural areas, wildlife habitat, prime farmland, and open space in the county. And whereas Orange County established the Lands Legacy Program for the purpose of protecting the most significant natural and cultural resources through partnerships with landowners and other conservation entities. And whereas one component of the Lands Legacy Program is the acquisition of conservation easements on prime farmland within water supply watersheds. And whereas the Cedar Grove Windy Hill Farm property includes approximately 39 acres in the Upper Eno Protected Watershed, consisting of a majority of prime agricultural soils, and includes 500 linear feet of stream buffer to a tributary that drains to Lake Orange, a drinking water supply reservoir for the town of Hillsborough. And whereas Jane Gledhill, the owner of the Cedar Grove Windy Hill Farm property, wishes to grant a permanent conservation easement to Orange County and the Eno River Association, which will protect the prime farmland and riparian corridors that exist on the property. And whereas a conservation easement on this approximately 39 acres would ensure the preservation of this farmland and stream buffers for future generations and help compensate the owner for this long-term commitment. Now therefore be it resolved that the Orange County Board of Commissioners does hereby, 1, accept on behalf of Orange County the conservation easement for land owned by Jane Gledhill. 2, approve the execution of this conservation easement agreement with Jane Gledhill in accordance with the terms of the proposed easement agreement, subject to final review by staff and the county attorney. 3, authorize the chair and the clerk to sign the easement agreement on behalf of the board, with a closing to occur on or about September 30th, 2019. And 4, authorize county staff to sign any and all closing documents upon consultation with the county attorney. Be it further resolved that the board thanks Jane Gledhill for the civic-minded granting of this conservation easement through the Lands Legacy Program, this the 4th day of June, 2019.
Jane, you want to? Yes, please.
I would like to gratefully accept this, really on behalf of my husband Jeffrey Gledhill, who sat in that chair for 30-something years, and his initiative to get this going is what happened, and so his legacy.
Wonderful.
Yay.
Get my steps in tonight. Okay. We are moving on to 4G, and this is a resolution endorsing H.R. 1384, Improved Medicare for All. The board will consider voting to approve a resolution endorsing H.R. 1384, Improved Medicare for All, and authorize the chair to sign it. And I have one person signed up for this. Commissioner Price, this was your resolution. Do you want to say anything?
Well, actually, it wasn't my resolution. Actually, it was Medicare for All Y'all, and this person that signed up, Nina Arshavsky, she
Okay, welcome, Nina.
Defer to her.
Good evening. So my name is Nina Ashrafsky, and I live in Chapel Hill, but I'm here on behalf of the local community group with the name Healthcare for All Y'all. So we are a group which is mostly located in Hillsborough. That's where we meet. We live in Orange County, and there are a lot of members who live in North Carolina beyond Orange County. Our goal is to provide information about how to solve our current health care problems, which are multiple and they are growing. I'm not going to list them all because the resolution, as I understand, will be read, and it lists a lot of them. I can only say that as a country, we pay more than twice as much as the average of developed world is paying per person. Not for per person who gets health care, per person who lives in the country, and a lot of these people are not even getting health care. And even those people who do have insurance, they still don't get care because of the costs they have to pay beyond their insurance. What I wanted to say is that this HR 1384 is a single-payer Medicare bill endorsed in Congress by Pramila Jayapal and more than 100 congressmen. What we are trying to do, we're trying to gather local support because these problems concern everybody in every corner of the country, not including Orange County and everywhere. So we are trying to get local support for this bill, and that's why we ask for you to endorse this resolution. Single payer is different. There are a number of bills introduced in the Congress right now with the name of Medicare for All, but single payer is the one that actually provides much more promise in addressing various problems like reducing the cost of care and actually providing universal care for everybody. I'm not going to say a lot more than that because all the problems are there. I just wanted to say that single payer is the best solution to the problem, and that's why we ask you to endorse it.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Price, would you like to read the resolution and move it, please?
Do you want me to read the whole thing, or just the therefore be it resolved?
That would be great, yeah.
What?
Therefore be it resolved, yes.
Okay, yeah, 'cause it's long. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Orange County, North Carolina does hereby endorse H.R. 1384, which adheres to the requirements below. 1, a single program, not a patchwork of multi-payer state and federal systems. 2, comprehensive coverage. All medically necessary services requiring a medical professional will be covered. 3, free at the point of service. No more shifting costs onto the sick. No premiums, no co-pays, no deductibles, no co-insurance. 4, universal coverage. Coverage for all U.S. residents. And 5, jobs, replacement and severance for those affected by the transition. This is the 4th day of June 2019.
Would you like to move that?
So moved.
And first, need a second?
Second.
Second by Bedford. Comments, questions? Commissioner McKee?
Several little areas I'm concerned about. This will essentially decimate the health industry, the current health industry. It says abolish the health industry.
Okay.
It specifically says that. Am I correct? That it will do away with the entire private health insurance industry in the United States in its entirety.
I think
I
think it
very
means in its
clear.
current form. I think that it's
No,
meant in its current
it
form.
doesn't say in its current form. It simply says, whereas abolishing the health insurance industry will require an unprecedented level of mobilization and organization. What does that mean?
Can I respond to that?
Would you like to respond?
So what the single payer system suggests is that the entire health industry stays intact. Healthcare industry meaning providers of care, hospitals, doctors, and everybody else who are providers of health care remain in the same, remain in the private system, and they remain the same. What is going to be changed is how the money to the private providers are going to be paid. and it's going to be paid similarly to how it is being paid by Medicare system. So basically, it's expanding Medicare insurance to everybody in the country, and not going through the private health insurance, which really care much more about their profits, and they actually take a lot of money to pay their CEOs and to pay for their profits and shareholders. And that's where a lot of money is going, and that's why our system is so expensive. So that's, the payment system is going to be like the Medicare payment system is right now.
Commissioner McKee, follow-up?
Commissioner
Well,
Green?
I mean, in response to that, Commissioner McKee, I would like to suggest a change in wording for that whereas, perhaps, whereas revamping healthcare delivery will require an unprecedented level of mobilization, et cetera. Would that satisfy your concern?
I'll be honest with you. I question the entire concept because the Veterans Program is essentially this concept of universal care, and it is riddled with inefficiency and delays and lack of service. And it's good rhetoric, but it's very short on details. Okay, if we change the wording, whereas abolishing the health insurance industry, but you go right to the 5th bullet point, which is jobs, it says replacement and severance for those affected. Now, what does that mean? How many? What will, and you mentioned yourself that it will do away with the insurance companies, and that will have an effect on their stockholders, which will affect the portfolios of millions of United States residents that holds those stocks in their portfolios in their retirement. How do you square that?
First of all these insurance companies, the medical insurance is not their only business. They also have insurance business in other areas. So one of the events we organized as a local group, we invited Wendell Porter, who was a prior, not CEO, but one of the, in the hierarchy of the Cigna company, insurance company. So he knows all the ins and outs of the private insurance. He's saying the insurance industry itself is not going to be destroyed because they have other businesses in addition to medical insurance. In terms of the jobs that are now held in private insurance companies that are dealing with medical bills and so on, part of the jobs will go to the expanded system, which Medicare expanded system will have these jobs. Now, these people will do the same job, but within a different system, right? Not private system, but Medicare system. The other jobs which are redundant, because there's a huge problem of doctors burn out because they have to deal with administrative tasks so much. It takes so much of their time. There's a lot of money which is spent on medical billing because each healthcare providers have to deal with billing from various insurance companies, and they won't have to deal with it if the system is going to be much more efficient. Those people who are going to be laid out, because the system now is inefficient and that's why it costs so much, so it's going to be a lot of cost saving. Those people who are not going to have a job, they will go through the retraining system, and the bill, which is proposed here and which we ask you to endorse, has taken this into account to provide a retraining system for those people who might lose their jobs.
Okay, you mentioned, I hate to just hound this, and I'll stop after this. If you could explain one other major business line that Blue Cross Blue Shield has, and if you could explain to me where the jobs are that these people are going to be retrained for or at, then I might reconsider.
Commissioner Dorson?
Yeah, I don't know how valuable it is to continue to engage back and forth with the speaker here, I appreciate Commissioner McKee's concern. I think the intent of this is to support, I think, expanded healthcare, universal healthcare for all Americans, and I think that's the spirit in which it's offered. I think the kind of details that you're concerned about and may lead you to vote against this are understandable, but I don't, I don't know that we would have those details in a resolution like this. I mean, I'm going to support it because I want to go on record supporting, universal health care. And this is one of the one of the multiple options to get there. So, I think we should, the motion's been made and seconded
Yes.
already? I mean, I think we should call the question then.
All right, can we call the question?
Just one brief comment, because I want to highlight one very positive thing. I mean, I agree with Commissioner Dorsey that this is really an endorsement and a movement toward universal health care, but the phrase that strikes out at me is where it says that 19% of the people aged 50 to 64 say they're staying in their current jobs rather than change because they've got health care there, probably good health care. And so that's bad for them in terms of their lack of flexibility. It's also bad for our people younger because they're not able to get those jobs. It's a big problem the way we're the only, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're the only country that links your entitlement to health care to jobs.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Green. Okay, the question has been called, so all those in favor of this resolution, HR 1384, say aye. Aye. Against?
Without further comment, no.
Okay, and that passes. Thank you so much.
Captain?
Yes, sir.
I know there's people here for this item 6A. I don't know if there's people here for any of the items in between, but given that it's after 9, maybe we should move that item up.
Okay.
Are there people signed up to speak?
We
to
have one
5?
person signed up to speak.
To 5, something in the 5s?
Nothing in the 5s.
So why don't we move this? I would suggest moving 6 up, since that's likely going to be the most time-consuming thing, and there's people here to speak to that, right? Or someone here to speak to that?
I believe the developers here.
And 5s can then go after that, since I have a feeling they're going to move expeditiously like the conservation stuff.
Okay. Let's see how the
Madam
board feels about
Chair,
that. Yes.
I'll go ahead and move 6 up if that's what we want to do, but I have to have a statement on number 6.
Okay, let's see, is everyone in favor of moving 6 up first?
Sure.
That feels right to everyone? Okay. Commissioner McKee?
Yes. While I recuse myself from the previous item, I will not be recusing, and I will not be asking to be excused from this item. I will disclose that I am an employee with Summit Engineering. I will refer back to the opinion of the attorney that when the item was being discussed for the old 86 I-40 interchange, of why I could not ask for it to be excused, why the board could not excuse me. Furthermore, I do not believe that Summit Engineering is doing this project. I think one of the primary owners is. I knew about this project for the first time Sunday afternoon when I sat down and read the agenda. I am not associated with this project, nor any division I work with has any association with this project. Therefore, I will not be recusing.
Thank you, Commissioner McKee. Any questions? Okay, so the major subdivision preliminary plat application for Fairway Hills, the board will receive the planning board's recommendation, review, and consider a decision on major subdivision preliminary plat application proposing a 20-lot, single-family residential subdivision in accordance with the provisions of Section 2.15, Major Subdivisions, Article 7, Subdivisions of the Unified Development Ordinance, or the UDO. And Patrick, thank you for being here.
Good evening, Commissioners. Pat Mallett, Current Planning. I'm just going to briefly walk you through this, and then I'm happy to dive in as much as you want to or not. This agenda item starts on page what I believe is 160 of your packets. It has the standard abstract with essentially the staff report, and then it has 7 attachments, including the resolution of approval, which we would move to theoretically at the end. You also have handouts that are revisions to essentially the back end of attachment to the application. These are the initial draft covenants. The applicant worked on them today, took the redacted version, stripped those out, put the names of the subdivision in there, and then specifically added a request on page 10 of these covenant sets that addresses the preservation of open space. So Vicinity map, this piece of property is located along US 70 across from the Occoneechee Hills Golf Course, east of Hillsborough. This is a tighter shot. You can see the golf course on the south side of the highway, and then the two subject properties proposing the 20-lot subdivision. The future land use element designation for this property is rural residential. Growth management system, it's rural designated. This request uses the flexible design option, which in part evaluates existing conditions, which looks at topography, environmentally sensitive areas, stream buffers, et cetera. And you'll notice on this, there's an existing home on the property that would be removed. These are some site photos. This is, if you were standing along there's a brown wooden fence on as you enter the residential driveway. This is facing as if you're going on 70 towards Durham. Note the grade change here. This is probably about 12 to 14 foot grade change along this portion of the frontage. It's a closer up shot. This is a view of the typical wooded area along the 75-foot buffer along US 70. View of the wooded interior area, the grassed area around the single-family house, the driveway. This is 70 here. The existing house on the property. And this is facing as if you were going west towards Hillsborough on 70. You can see the opposite. There's an elevation change of about 5 to 7 feet going up from 70 there. This is the preliminary plat site plan. The overview of this is the hatch patterns show suitable soils throughout the property. These blue areas are common open space areas that are in most part held by an HOA in common open space. There are also easements for these lots over here. The areas in blue are primary common open space. The areas in green indicate secondary common open space. Those are areas that are adjacent to most specifically stream buffers. The applicant is proposing an entrance here along US 70. They've had significant discussions and meetings with NCDOT to properly locate that street. This would be a public street, and these lots would be served by public streets. The location was designed to avoid disturbance of this culvert that goes under US 70 and over to the golf course. It's also designed to be able to accommodate a planned right-in and left turn lane into the entrance. As I said, it's 20 single-family lots, common open space. These circled areas here are anticipated BMPs or stormwater devices that would serve the project. 100-foot buildings setback around the perimeter, and then a 75-foot preserved and landscaped buffer along US 70. This is the landscape plan. It shows generally tree preservation areas, street tree plantings along the public streets, and then supplemental plantings along the buffer along US 70. Plan summary, 41.97 acres, flexible development option, total of 20 lots, average lot size, 1.3 acres, area in common open space, 15.57 acres, or 37% is what they're proposing. The minimum is 33%. These are the attributes. Most of these I just went over. This is a breakdown of the primary, secondary open space, and then the buffers and perimeter. All of the lots touch some form of common open space, whether primary, secondary, or buffer. Other element is the building setback around the perimeter, a 75-foot landscape buffer along US 70, and then also a commitment for a 50-foot well setback along the perimeter of the project. The manager recommends to the board to receive the planning board and planning director's recommendation on preliminary plat application for Fairway Hills, discuss the proposal as desired, approve the preliminary plat and resolution of approval as contained in attachment 7.
Okay, Okay, do you want to start with questions for you, Patrick, or you have some more to show us before we get the applicant up?
I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioner Green?
Excuse me, perhaps I missed it in there somewhere, but is there any plan for repurposing or reusing the existing house?
I think I'm going to have to defer to the applicant on what their plans are for the house. I think generally speaking, it would be removed. What they're going to do with the materials, I do not know.
Person?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Were you still on?
No, I was just going to say that the applicant is here. He has a presentation as well.
Okay.
I think for the sake of expediency, he'll do whatever the board wishes. So.
Okay. Commissioner Dorson?
Well, I can wait till after the applicant's presentation. Maybe all questions will be answered.
Okay, I had the same question as Commissioner Green. I was wondering if the house could actually be moved or salvaged somehow, so maybe we can get that answer as you're coming up.
Tim Smith with Summit Design.
Is this my presentation you have up here? Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tim Smith. I'm a civil engineer and land surveyor with Summit Design and Engineering here in Hillsborough. I'm here tonight with another associate of mine, Mr. Ed Sergani, as well as the developer, Mr. Jim Parker. I'm not going to reiterate a lot of what Patrick's already told you. I think everybody's pretty familiar with your packets with this site. I do just want to clarify and add a couple things. One being just an overview of this area real quick. You see the site here along Highway 70, but as you go down the adjoining Palmer's Grove Church Road and surrounding areas, there are several other similar developments that have 1 acre lots with well and septic in this area. And so this is just an example of some of those other development areas that have very similar lots to what we're proposing here. Also, I just wanted to also clarify, Patrick mentioned the buffers around the property, 100 foot, but also along Highway 70, we have increased the building setback dimension to 120 feet to set those houses further back from the highway so that they're not so much prominent view as you come along Highway 70. And just to give a quick example of that, we have a rendering here that kind of shows, what you would potentially be looking at as you drive by. We're preserving that 75-foot buffer with all the existing vegetation along Highway 70. We will also be implementing additional plantings there to meet the requirements for the Type E buffer. So I just want to clarify and add those comments. Otherwise, I'm going to stop right there and just ask if there are any questions. And there's other information here in my presentation if I need to use that to answer your questions. Thank you.
Okay, perhaps you can answer the question about the house, the existing house. Yeah.
Speaking with the developer, the house is considerable in age. There's no intent, I don't think, to move it or totally reuse the house in its entirety. There would be some consideration during demolition to recycle the materials.
Commissioner Dorson?
Yeah, so am I looking at this map correctly, that the way you get to any of these open spaces is you have to walk along the perimeter of the property? And how do you get to it if you live in one of these lots that's on the inside of Bogey Court without walking across someone else's property?
Right. There will be provisions in our final design with the final plat to accommodate access for each of the lot to reach the open space. We'll have to add easements at different locations to provide that access for other open space areas. So the intent is for everybody to have full access to all the open space. So right now, it's not 100% there, but it will be during the final plat.
So that, I'm right in looking at least this one, that's not on there right now.
That's
I mean,
correct.
I see some dedicated, it looks like, access easements along the very edges.
Right, it's a secondary open space along the edges, and so the intent is to, have connectivity of all those spaces. So we will need to be adding easements to connect those together, so everybody has access.
Right, okay.
Commissioner Markopoulos?
A couple of little detail questions. So you've got HOA regulations in here, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're
Yeah.
right up front saying what they're going to be. And I was looking at the lot maintenance. Would gardens be allowed under the lot maintenance provisions?
I would say so. These are preliminary HOA documents. They're not set in stone at this point, but, you know, that would certainly be something that I wouldn't see would be prohibited. Are you asking if it would be allowed?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also asking if there's a way to put in up front that a future HOA can't remove gardens.
I would refer that to the developer, but I don't see any reason why those conditions would not be acceptable.
And then in a related question, you know, a lot of HOAs don't allow clotheslines. Is that addressed here at all? I didn't see it. I poked around a little bit.
Honestly, I'm not sure if that detail's in there. Like I said, these are draft documents at this point, so specifically whether or not that would be a condition that would be.
So I would suggest that that also be put in there as something that cannot be revoked, that people have the right to use solar drying.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, that'd be great, thanks.
Commissioner Price?
Well, while you're here, I was just wondering that open space to the east that backs up into other properties that are already there, is that going to be open for them as well?
Over here, if
Yeah.
you see this area?
Yeah.
Open to the adjoining property owners?
Yeah.
Not the intent, not to say that, you know, it wouldn't potentially be
So, I mean,
used, but
are you building a wall?
it's being preserved in its natural state the way it is now, so whether or not the adjoining property owners use that wooded area to walk through, or you know, it's going to remain as it is now, so, yeah.
But, I mean, just from a standpoint of neighborliness, is there going to be a wall or a barrier
Oh, no.
permitting them?
No, it's just going to remain
prohibiting them?
totally in its natural state, just like it is now.
Okay.
The neighbors there won't see any difference now or after the subdivision.
Okay, and then I had a question when you had the rendering, the street scene. With there being only one entrance and exit on the 70 for the 20 homes, and I have seen 70 at 8:30 in the morning and at 4:30 in the afternoon. I see you've got a turn arrow. Is DOT going to, or are you going to be widening or making changes to?
That'll be part of the project too. You know, we've worked diligently with NCDOT to determine what improvements they would like, and so there will be a left turn lane, a full access left turn lane, as well as a deceleration right turn lane as you're headed west at this intersection location.
So that'll go from Lawrence Road to the entrance?
I'm sorry?
From Lawrence Road to your entrance will be a turn?
Well, not that far. It'll be some considerable distance. I think we have a 200-foot deceleration and then another 100 feet. So not all the way to Lawrence, no.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
More questions?
Yes. Brent? That's a good point. Did you consider two accesses to 70?
We did not, just due to, and DOT honestly would not prefer to see that.
Really?
Because that causes even more traffic problems with just one entrance. With one entrance, it's cleaner, it's neater. You're able to provide these lanes for additional, you know, left turn and so forth in one concise manner, rather than having, you know, DOT will only let you have intersections so close to one another,
Right.
and it just wouldn't work.
Can you talk a little bit about the payment in lieu, please?
Payment in lieu.
Yeah, for the open space, I see that there's a payment in lieu for each unit.
So I'm assuming you're talking about the park fee.
That's right.
So the way it works is they pay a fee that's based on the number of units in the park district that they're in, and I can look up the actual number.
It's around the 400s, it's okay.
Yeah, so that's what they have to pay, and that fee has to be paid prior to the recordation. That money goes into the park fund for parks and recreation in that area.
Okay.
It's a substantial amount.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm correct in thinking that is standard for all.
That's right.
I mean, that's not something for this, that's the standard.
We have two new folks here who haven't done a
I'm sorry.
development
No,
yet, so I just
my-
want to make sure that we're laying it all out on the
Okay,
table.
okay.
I have one person that wants to speak. Do the commissioners want to hear from that person first, or do you want to
I
continue?
just had one more question.
Sure, Commissioner Dorson.
So that, we've got the preliminary plat summary, that was a slide that says, you know, it has all the details, and the average lot size is 1.3 acres. And I know there was some discussion at the planning board about the range of costs and the limit on affordable housing, but can you say about how big these houses are going to be? Obviously, it'll vary somewhat based on the size of the lot, but
They will vary based on the size of the lot, and then also on the, we have what looks like good suitable soils for a majority of the property. Of course, when you get into the very final stages of permits with Orange County, that could change. Right now, the developer is proposing 4 to 5 bedroom houses sized.
and so what is that, like 3,500 square feet, 4,500 square feet?
Yeah, and probably a little bigger, but in that range, I would say, basically, yeah.
Commissioner Price?
And what is the timing of this? And I ask because I know that further down the road, there'll be a bridge replacement, and then you've got the intersection, and you're not too far from the intersection. When will the road construction and all of that happen?
I think the intent is to build the infrastructure for the roads to create the lots late this year, early 2020,
Okay.
to get that in place. So fairly soon.
All right. Well, I would, go ahead.
Just want to add on to that. I don't want to talk for too long. So they'll have to build those roads to
The
DOT
interior one?
standards prior to recordation. So
Well, I was actually thinking more of the improvement to 70.
the turn lanes pretty much, it's not a dictate, but that would pretty much be in their best interest to do up front. And
Yeah,
then
I
work
would-
their way inward. The other element that I did not bring up is they've agreed to reserve 5 feet of additional right-of-way. It's not a dedication, but it's a reservation for additional right-of-way because there are known capital improvements along 70 that are coming online after this. So.
And if we could have some good PR on that, I guess that comes to Todd McGee over there, so people know what's going on, because it's going to be a mess, I think.
Okay, let's hear from the one person here. Paul No, is that?
Thank you.
You're Paul? Okay. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Hi, thank you, Commissioners. My name is Paul Noe. I am here as a resident of the Eno Township, also as reflecting the views of my wife, Jennifer Williams, and my neighbors Zelda Lockhart and Linda Nathanson, who unfortunately could not be here today. We've been to a lot of the meetings and hearings in the planning board, discussions, and we register our concerns. And I think that the county and the developers have done a good job at addressing some of them, and I appreciate that they've done that. Our primary concern relates to the fact that we are on the uplands that surround this development. This is on a lowlands area. These are, yes, there are similar developments to this in the area, or similar concentrations of homes, but these are much larger homes than the average ones that are in the area, based on my observation from living there. There are other large homes, but these are, as a group, much larger. So these are 5-bedroom homes going on well and septic in an area that has no plans, and anywhere, maybe even in our lifetimes, of having of city water going out there. So we are stuck on well water and septic for probably the life of all of our homes. So what our concern is that being in the uplands, as this development goes in, and looking forward towards further ones that will inevitably go in this area, because there are several large properties that will inevitably be developed in this way, and I'm not opposed to that, I want to stop that, but I would want to know, how do we plan to deal with situations in which the demand this is going to place on our water supply? So, for instance, our water has already had to be, well before we moved in several years back, has already had to be dug deeper as a result of several water limitations because of the greater usage. What's going to happen as these move in, and we are then tasked with the burden of spending tens of thousands of dollars to have to either choose to dig our wells deeper or leave. There's no other option. There's no alternative. There's no way out. Effectively, the houses are useless. The property becomes worthless in that case. And we've been assured by the county and by the developer that this won't happen, that there won't be any contamination issues as a result of the construction. And I want to believe that's probably going to be the case. I think that's very likely not going to happen. But what happens 2 years down the road when it does, or if it does? Who are we going to turn to? The developer will be gone. They won't be liable. Who are we going to be able to turn to for any kind of recompense in that kind of case? And so I know that we wanted to register our concerns in that and to request that the commission at least take those concerns into heart and to think developing planning forward, that as they plan for further developments like this, which will inevitably come because this is an area of heavy development of interest, how are we going to deal with this moving forward? And so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Additional comments, questions? Commissioner Bedford?
I wanted to ask our planning, I noticed in the planning notes that if the planning board has requested that the department study the stormwater runoff, that, you know, we're fine with the 1 inch per whatever the time was. And I didn't know if that had come back, and what, as a professional, if you thought that was a good idea, that we should go ahead and do that.
Michael Harvey, current planning.
You have to move that up so we can hear you, although we probably can hear you without it.
Michael Harvey, current
There we
planning. To be candid, they have requested that the staff provide some feedback. Obviously, we have stormwater standards in certain critical watersheds that are water supply watersheds that are more restrictive than the 24-hour storm. Mr. Howard Fleming, who was the stormwater control supervisor, has been directed by Mr. Benedict to provide a response to the planning board on the different options available and the potential pros and cons. Obviously, when you increase your stormwater design standard, there is a impact in the cost of developing that feature, and that has to be understood before the planning board makes a recommendation to you or you consider modifying existing stormwater regulatory standards. We are comfortable with our current ordinance, especially what is known as the pre-post conditions, meaning if there's an inch of water leaving the site today under its current condition, developed condition can't have more water leaving the site than the pre-development conditions. So I stand before you comfortable that the stormwater component and stormwater issues can be addressed, but obviously we are responding to the planning board's request for additional information on what are the pros and cons of modifying that standard as it currently exists.
Thank you.
And if I could add one more comment to Commissioner Dorson's question on recreational access.
Please.
Article 7 of the Unified Development Ordinance requires what is known as a pedestrian open space access easement, or a POSA. We planners love our acronyms. The applicant is responsible for providing this POSA so that internal lot owners are able to access all open space as a means of passive recreation. That's a requirement of the final plat, and they are fully aware they have to do that. And they've taken steps in conversations with us to ensure that that provision is complied with so that individuals can access various open space lots and not be trespassing. They'll be going through recognized easement.
Commissioner Markopoulos.
I think it'd be useful to hear a brief reply to the issue of the wells and the water issue, if only to have it as part of the video record of this discussion.
I would say of the issues that have been discussed at the neighborhood meeting, planning board, et cetera, the well and septic was probably foremost. So I've asked Phil Valero with Environmental Health to be here in case there were any questions about the wells and or the septics. Tim can answer some questions. But that's wrapped up in the last part that I wanted to make, which is this is a consideration of the preliminary plat. There are NCDOT driveway permits that have to be had, a stormwater and erosion control permit that has to be obtained, and a land disturbance permit. With the wells and the septics, there are separate permits for each and every lot. So you're looking at 20 well permits theoretically, improvement permits, the perk test for 20 lots, and then construction authorizations for 20 lots. So with that, I'll let you.
So before you go away, what is, when you say approving the preliminary plat, so we're going to approve this and then will changes come back to that, to us, or this is all we need to be approving?
At this level, this was what you would review and approve, and if there were any significant changes to that, then it would have to go back, and theoretically,
Go through the
it would
process.
go back through the planning board and back through to the board of commissioners.
I think Michael wants to say something, and then we'll get a reply to Commissioner Markopoulos's question.
Just expand on that, just to make sure everyone is clear. What you are potentially approving tonight is the breaking up of this 40-some-odd acres into 20 lots with 37% open space.
accessing via a public road network. Individual lot owners will have to go through the appropriate permitting processes, which would include erosion control, stormwater, environmental health, well, whatnot, building permit review, zoning compliance review. It is conceivable that I purchased lot 10, and I'm just throwing out a lot to give the example, and I can't build a 3 or 4 bedroom house due to septic and well concerns. I may either have to purchase additional property or I may have to scale back my plan. The point is, what you are approving is the splitting up of this parcel into X number of lots with a mandatory percentage of open space accessed by a public road network with off-site improvements that are going to have to be reviewed and approved by the Department of Transportation. And then each property is still obligated to go through a fairly arduous permitting process to ensure compliance with applicable land use regulations.
Thank you for clearing that up. Appreciate that. And who wants to talk to us about the wells? Sir?
I'm Phil Villaro. I'm the on-site water protection section supervisor of Orange County Environmental Health Services Division. And I was asked by the planning personnel to be available to answer questions. So Commissioner Markopoulos, in particular, I will say that I've worked in environmental health in Orange County for 17 years. I've permitted things for you back to '02. And again, I want to stress that we have subdivisions in the vicinity with smaller lots like Brigadoon that are all on individual wells. I am unaware of any event of so-called mass extinction or mass contamination of wells caused by a subdivision with lots of this size. That's not to say it's inconceivable, but it has not happened. The wells that would be drilled on these properties would probably be built to higher standards, that would certainly be built to higher standards than most of the existing surrounding wells. But we're not in a situation in Orange County, in most areas, where we have one big sandy aquifer like we do in the coastal plain. The wells, they're all drinking out of the same groundwater ultimately, they're all tapping it. But they don't always communicate directly. You may have 20 gallons a minute, your neighbor may have 2, and you're well aware of that as having been a builder. And I imagine Mr. McKee is aware of that too. So I'm not a hydrogeologist, and I found that wells, what I call hard rock wells that are sunk into bedrock, are rather unpredictable from even within a subdivision. But there just isn't any precedent for, we have 20 wells here and all the neighbors' wells run dry in this county. I mean, I haven't seen it or heard of it in my entire experience in this county. And that we have many similar subdivisions, so I can only speak from experience. But in North Carolina, when you buy a property, unless it's very unusual to have the water rights separate, you have a right to drill a well on your property. That's pretty much state law. So keep that in mind. I mean, but I just have not ever seen or heard of a problem with a large, people have problems with individual wells. I know subdivisions that have a lot of problems with water quality. I've dealt with a lot of that in my career. But in terms of, I build a subdivision, everybody's wells run dry, I have not experienced that in Orange County. So
Okay, thank you.
that's what I can relate to the board.
Thank you. Commissioner Markopoulos, is that?
I'm just impressed you remembered 2002 was the first one.
I remember, I think I can even remember the location. I think it was on 54 and Bowden Road.
Okay. Additional questions? Concerns, comments? Commissioner McKee.
I would just note that this subdivision is not inconsistent with others that we have approved, both in the county and in adjacent areas around Chapel Hill. As far as the size of the homes, I find that essentially not to be relevant. I understand the arguments that some folks have made on the size of the homes, but that is a preference of the buyers of the property, is how large they, and I don't think they're required to build any particular size home. So they may decide to build a 5-bedroom, or they may decide to build a 3-bedroom and enjoy more of their property. As to the access to the open space, given the small size of the property in total, I don't think that it would be onerous, even if I owned an interior lot and had to walk to that. I believe it would be an easy walk. And I think that having that open space and that walkability is exactly what these homeowners would want.
Commissioner Dorson?
Yeah, you know, my point on the easements was just that people shouldn't have to walk across other people's lots, and just to be
Yeah,
clear on that.
I agree with that, but I
yeah.
believe there's access for all lots.
Well, there will be, it sounds like. I mean, on the one we have, if you're one of those inside ones, you can't get to what's on the map, but it's going to be resolved. So on the size of the houses, I mean, I do think, not that this would hold up moving forward with this, but, you know, there were points raised by the planning board, and Michael, in response to that for a variety of reasons, the kind of density bonus, the kind of incentives that we provide for affordable housing doesn't really apply in this area because of the overlay districts and things like that. So one thing that might be worth looking at going forward is whether in these otherwise constrained areas, there isn't some alternative, like a payment in lieu for affordable housing, because we're 5,000 square foot houses, 5-bedroom houses. I mean, that may be what people want are going to move into this place, but it's not. I think we need to figure out how we can reconcile that, if we can, with with our goals for affordable housing, with the kind of inclusionary zoning models that Chapel Hill uses, with the incentives that we have provided. The density bonus isn't a reasonable incentive in certain districts because of other issues. Are there alternatives that we could look at that could at least supplement or help further our affordable housing goals? So that's not a question that is specifically related to the approval of this project, but it is a question related to what will likely be more developments like this, that have already been developments like this. And so I think it's something we really ought to, if there's something else we can add to our arsenal to bolster affordable housing, we ought to try to figure out how to do that.
That sounds like a petition to me, and I know that Michael has given us a number of times he's gone over the UDO and the process with us. So maybe, Michael, we could talk about that again, and maybe there are something. Maybe we are missing something. Maybe we could try to think outside the box. You don't have to reply to. Well, I know there's a list, and I think what Commissioner Dorson is saying is that we have this constant goal of trying to get affordable housing. And we're not taking this into that same vein, but is there a way that we haven't thought about yet to get that density bonus? And I know the overlays, I understand it, and I'm just trying to agree with him. I think we need to maybe think outside the box a little bit. So yeah, and thank you again for telling us what we're actually doing. I think it's important that we know that each property has to come back and do their permitting. So are there any additional questions? What we're doing is we're approving the preliminary plat and resolution of approval contained in attachment 7.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, so Markopoulos and Bedford, all those in favor say aye.
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 Against? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. And I did read that the planning board did ask for some, I think Greg said he was going to give a white paper or some information to them on the questions they had. So I guess you'll follow up with them, right? Thank you, sir. Okay, we're going to move back to 5 now, folks. And so we're going to start with the 5A, and that is to conduct a public hearing on the remaining of portion of Tier Road, Secondary Road 1100 to Flat Rock Road, and then to rename a portion of the public road known as Tier Road to Flat Rock with attachment A. And this is a public hearing, and Dwayne Brinson is going to give us the rundown very quickly.
Dwayne Brinson, Orange County Tax Administrator. We'll be very quick. For the first time since the board passed the road naming and addressing ordinance, we're coming back needing to rename a couple roads. And I'm going to ask Mr. Michael Burton to give a brief overview of that.
Welcome, Mr. Burton.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Sorry we're putting you on the spot to be very quick.
That's okay. Michael Burton, Manager of the Land Records GIS Tax Administration Office. We are before you today to conduct the public hearing comments regards to the action agenda item 5A, renaming portion of Tier Road to Flat Rock Road. Owasa's King Creek Reservoir has intersected this road, dividing it into separate segments. The duplicate road names segments interferes with accurate dispatch of emergency vehicles. Emergency Services has requested that this portion be renamed. In the abstracts before you, we have attached the agreements with an exhibit map showing the affected road segment, the correspondences with residents confirming their choice of road name, and NCDOT's approval of the county able to be renaming a public road. At this time, we would be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? I have a question. I guess it is, someone wanted a low number on their house. Was that for this, was that for Tier Road or a different one?
I believe that was Apple Mill.
Okay, so we'll do that next. Okay. All right, I need a motion to open up the public hearing if there are no questions.
Second.
Okay, we got McKee and Green. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, we do not have anyone here from the public to speak, so I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All right, McGee and Green again. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any additional questions,
Yeah,
comments?
so there were 2 tier roads, and then now there's one long one, is that right?
Originally, there was one
Oh,
long tier
one, and now
road.
there's 2.
Reservoir took a portion of that road out, so that it's no longer passable for the vehicles. So it creates a lot of confusion for emergency services vehicles knowing which direction to go and which portion to get to help our residents.
Gotcha.
It's up in that little inset up there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that on your computer here. Okay, so we are closed the public hearing. There is no vote on this tonight. Thank you, sir. And we were going to move to 5B. And this is to conduct a public hearing on the remaining of a portion of Apple Mill Road, Secondary Road 1225 to Rip Nook Road. See the renaming portion in public as Apple Mill Road to Rips Nook Road. Would you like to go ahead? That was a tough one for me to get at, I'm sorry. It's like almost past 10 o'clock.
Who picks his names?
I
The
know.
resident neighbors?
We approach this issue with the same way that we approach residents coming to us and wanting to rename a road. We ask for the majority vote on each of the residents giving us 3 names for the road. We let them know what the majority vote is, and then they confirm that, and then we notify them with the road name and
I mean,
change.
so they pick,
Yes, sir.
and
We gave them the
then-
option here.
and so... and
Okay,
th- and
did you
then-
see the options? on
Yeah,
this
but I'm
one?
just wondering how you get to the 3 is the thing, is that comes from the neighbors.
The neighbors. In this case, Flat Rock Road may have been one of the suggested different parameters that we had still available, which was not a duplicate into the county. The Rips Nook Road, in this case, it happens to do with, it's a family name. There's one resident off this road, and they chose to go ahead and use that name.
Instead of Hobo's
It's
Heap?
Hobo's Heap, right?
Or Eagle Feather. Thank God. Eagle
Any
Feather.
that aren't
Eagle Feather
chosen, we
will
tend to write down for future use, suggestion.
Okay, let's open this public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, Bedford and McKee, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, we do not have anyone signed up. We would like to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Bedford and McKee again, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, so I'll ask that question again. Will his address be 1?
I don't believe we permit 1, but we'll make it as low as possible.
Low as possible. So you're not number 1, you're 2?
Maybe 100.
Oh, 100, I see, we get there. Okay, so he's got the 1 in there, so it's not too bad. Okay,
Particular resident lives towards the end of the road. So we probably have to accommodate for the possibility of someone else developing from the intersection
in.
back to them.
that's a good point. Thank you, that's why you get paid the big bucks.
Sometimes.
All right, there is no vote on this also. We're going to bring this back. Thank you so much for hanging with us, and we moved you around. I'm sorry about that, but,
Thank you.
okay, great. Okay, now we're going to move to C. And this is, the board will hold a public hearing to receive the planning board recommendation and consider action on a property-owned initiated amendment to the zoning atlas for parcel property at 2616 Old Greensboro Road. Specifically, the applicant is requesting the property to be rezoned from existing commercial EC5 to rural buffer RB, University Lake Protected Watershed Protective Overlay District, and that they want that to be EC5, University Lake Protected Watershed Protection Overlay District. Did I do that correctly?
Yeah.
It sounded like I didn't. Okay, good. Take it away.
Okay, so you have your standard abstract packet. This item starts on, I believe, page 133 of your packet. You have 7 attachments. Most importantly are the attachment 6, the BOCC Statement of Consistency, and then the ordinance amending the zoning atlas. I'm going to go very quickly through this one. I think it's fairly straightforward. Vicinity map, just to orient you, this is Old Greensboro Road, and if you're familiar with traveling down this road, Holly Creek Lane is over here to the east. This is the Ferguson Road intersection with Old Greensboro. This is the recycling facility, the Orange County Solid Waste Recycling Facility. This is approximately 500-600 feet away from the facility. There's one intervening property. The edge of the rural buffer is right about there. This property has been in, as best we can tell, non-residential use since probably the 60s. The current owner, Stan Lawton, has operated a mini storage facility there, Lawton Storage, since 1977. It predates the zoning. This township was zoned in 1981. You'll note from the air photo, this is the EC5 property here, portion of the property here. This is the mini storage building. Mr. Lawton's residence/office is here. There's a woodworking facility here, and then outdoor storage that's enclosed. This is a zoning exhibit demonstrating all the existing features, including impervious surfaces, and then the hatch pattern represents their desire to rezone it all EC5. Site summary, Bingham Township, Penn, Thomas Lawton, owner. This is the breakout of the zoning. All the University Lake protected would remain. We're essentially trying to get it not split zoned. Future land use map is designated as rural buffer. Rural designated in the growth management system. Down here. Summary. This case was actually part of a packet, if some of you will recall, by BOCC direction. We went through and took a look at several dozen properties that had zoning issues, most namely split zoning, or it was zoned commercial and no longer in use. This property was in that stack. We were recommending that we eliminate the split zoning and rezone it to EC5. The owner, he's in his 70s, and I think he wanted some time to understand what zoning implications there were and his long-term plans for the property. We pulled it out, advising him that you're making a conscious choice, and if you want to go back and get it rezoned, you'll either have to wait till the next batch, which could be years, or you can pay for it on your own dime. And so he is paying for this process and this application fee on his own dime. As I mentioned, he's operated a business on the property since 1977, predates the zoning. What this does is it resolves a non-conforming use, namely the woodworking shop, for reasons unknown. The woodworking shop that probably went back to the 1960s was never zoned commercial. We don't have any evidence why. And it would also obligate the owner, if that is also a non-conforming structure, there's a 100-foot buffer along the southern property line, there would be terms that would be set in place that he would have to rectify the land use buffer. Site photos, I'm going to go very quickly. This is the building that has the split zoning. The line literally goes through one of the bays of the building. This is the back area. This is the original woodworking shop. This is Mr. Lawton's house and office. This is the edge of the eastern property line that has a fairly ornate koi pond. This is going towards Ferguson Road. And this is facing east as if you're going towards Chapel Hill and University Lake. Recommendation, review the proposed zoning atlas amendment materials, receive the planning board's recommendation, open and close the public hearing, deliberate on the petition as desired, consider the planning board's recommendation, decide accordingly, and adopt the statement of consistency contained in attachment 6 and the ordinance, the zoning atlas contained in attachment 7. That's all I have. If you have any questions.
Questions before we open the public hearing? Nope, okay, I need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
McKee, second, anyone? Markopoulos, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay. Public hearing is open, no one is here to speak, or no one is signed up to speak. Does anyone want to speak? Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing.
McKee? Markopoulos, second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
Just keeping things lively. I would like to keep the public hearing open forever.
Okay. So what we're being asked to do is to approve the statement of consistency in attachment 6 and approve the ordinance amending the zoning atlas attachment 7 as recommended by the planning board and the planning director. So we need a motion on that.
So moved.
Bedford, need a second?
Earl did.
Green? All those in,
No,
oh,
Earl.
McKee? Wow, that sounded like,
I'm busy.
your voice is getting on you. All right, second by McKee. All those in favor? Say
Aye.
aye. Against? Okay, thank you. And thank you for telling our new folks that we are going back, and we found quite a few of these where they're split zone. And so we are going back and trying to fix that. We've also found some land out on 54 that was split zoned, and we're still working on that. That was one of Commissioner Dorson's pet peeves out there, so. Okay, we did 6, we are up to 7, and we see there's no reports. Does anyone want to pull anything from the consent agenda? Okay, let's get an approval on that, please.
Second?
Bedford and Dorson, all those in favor, say aye.
Green
Aye.
and Dorson.
That was green, but what the heck?
That's right.
I wanted to do it.
You did? Oh, no. All right, there's a fight tonight. Sorry, I wasn't looking up. All those in favor say aye.
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 Against? Okay. That takes us to the county manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I have 2 things that I just want to draw to your attention. I just sent you all an email that had the link for the solid waste fee waiver for those impacted by the storm on April 5th. That, feel free to share that. That was just posted today. We'll distribute it widely, but if you have constituents that you know of that have a need or are interested, let them know that there is a fee waiver and they can sign up for the waiver, or if they've already taken their debris to the solid waste, there will be refunds available with their receipts. Also, we worked with the emergency services, and they did a storm, or a crisis track. I was going to say storm track. They did a crisis track which identified all the properties that could have been hit by the storm based on where the storm was. So we'll use that as a guide. So we encourage everyone to go to solid waste, and if they've already paid for their tipping fees, that we will refund them based on that storm. And then also, just a reminder, we do have a work session on Thursday evening. It will be the last work session where we'll be presenting the functional leadership teams. And then a week from today, we will have the last meeting with the intent to adopt, where you will all go over the amendments and vote on the amendments and then do the intent to adopt. And then a week later, we will, at the regular business meeting, have the adoption of the budget for you. So that is all I have to report tonight, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. County Attorney?
Nothing tonight.
Awesome. Okay, let's go to appointments. The first one is the Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee. And what is the pleasure of the board on this? We have
I'll move Joan Ream for position 4, Olivia Fisher for position 9, Mary Lou Gelbum for position 11, and Karen Green McElveen for position 12.
Second.
Second by Markopoulos. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay. Now we have the ABC Board, and this is this just to select the chair? That's correct, okay. And we have
We
the,
have to
No,
fill,
no,
there's
we
a
have to-
vacancy to
There's
fill.
one vacancy.
I'm sorry.
First, second, term.
First full.
First
So
full
let's,
term.
let's nominate that first then.
I'll nominate Elizabeth Carter for position 5.
Okay, a second?
Second.
That was you, Commissioner Bradford, right? Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
All those in favor of Liz Carter for position 5, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, now we can move to the chair, and
I'll nominate Keith Bagby to remain as the chair.
Second.
okay, Dorson and Price, all those in favor of Keith Bagley as chair, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay,
Bag B, right?
Bagby.
okay.
Concept Bagley.
Let's move to the Board of Health, which is 11C. And there's 2 positions there. What do we think?
I'll move Dr. Jennifer Dial for position 2, the at-large pharmacist, and Dr. Sam Lazarus, position 9, at-large dentist.
Second.
Okay. Dorson and Price, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, that passes. And then we have the Orange County Parks and Recs Council.
I'll move Jennifer Moore for position 3.
Second.
Okay, Markopoulos and Price, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and what, we have a position 7, and we are holding off on this, is that correct?
Yes, they asked that we hold off. They were going to be discussing Mr. Singletary at the
In
next
June.
meeting in June.
Okay, so we're going to hold off on that. We have,
It's just worth noting on that
Yes, sir.
appointment, though, that, pursuant to our policy, when it's difficult to fill a position that has a regional designation, we've made the policy that we
That's
would
right.
accept a nomination not from that regional designation. This was done, and it's just worth noting the letter that was sent by this board explaining that they were pursuing that policy and that they were making a selection particularly that would improve diversity on this board. Just want to give them props for that.
yeah, thank you for pointing that out, and that's important. So I don't know if y'all know that, we did, that. You got that, okay. Cool, I don't have to repeat it then. Awesome. All right, so you got information items. There is no closed session, so we need a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I
Yes,
just want to
ma'am.
say, I appreciate the information item about the MPOs and RPOs and all that. I have a feeling it might have come out of Commissioner Bedford's and my meeting where we needed to have it all explained, but it's nice to have this handy cheat
Oh,
sheet.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I wanted to say that was a nice chart, because it does get confusing, and that was a good one.
Yep.
All righty, did we get a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I did.
Got it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome, against?
And if anybody
Yeah.
does not want these, I can return them to the Summit's main office, and they'll get it wherever it's
Yeah,
got to go.
they left too soon.
Yep, we'll just